Hello, everyone. This is Brandon. Just giving you a quick heads up. Unfortunately, we had some audio difficulties this week, which is why we didn't release on Friday like normal. But I think I've been able to salvage it over the last few days, so we're going to go ahead and release it. Unfortunately, Jeremy is going to sound a little bit like Ultron, but I think we're going to be okay. Sorry for any inconveniences, and enjoy the episode.
So what are we going to call this thing?
I got it. Okay. Incredible, new, fantastic, astonishing, mighty, original, uncanny, sensational podcast.
I'm just going to put down infamous.
Hello, and thank you for joining Infamous, the audio podcast. My name is Brandon, or Mutilus on the forums.
And I'm Parker. Usually go by Tweak on those forums.
I'm Jeremy. I don't go by anything. Yep.
You should just be Jeremy. I'm too old for forums.
Oh shit.
You could do jazz.
Can that be
hands.
your new sign-in? I would really appreciate that.
I would like. Well, can I go by like J-Bone?
J-Bone on the
J-Bone,
forums.
too old for this nonsense.
You can be J-Bear. How about J-Bear?
Yeah.
No. That's gross. And somehow so much worse.
No.
Ow.
No. And then
The naked bear?
spelled like
okay.
the naked bear, not like a bear.
The right
That's
to bear
really horrible.
Jeremy's bears.
It's disgusting. Oh.
All right, so
This is really fast
for the
for
first
us.
time ever
Oh my
on
God, where are we
Infamous the
going?
podcast,
What's
I'm going to
happening?
remember that we have announcements.
What is
Are
happening?
you guys excited? I'm very excited.
I am super excited.
Just a few things to run through. We have new music. I don't know if any of you are the original listeners that we had, but for a while we were just using some stock audio from the old X-Men cartoon. And I wasn't advertising the podcast until we had our music finally came in. And my friend Colin, who is very into music and does commission music production, came through for us, and that's how we have our current music. I went through and re-edited all of our old episodes, and I'm now advertising. So thank you very much, Colin. Colin is really fun to work with, and you can reach him on, I believe it's drthallium.com. Let me double check here. I've linked it in our on our Facebook page. It is www.drthallium.com. THALLIUM. And so that's Colin. He's a good friend of ours. We also have managed to greatly increase our audio quality. So if you had any trouble with any of our earlier episodes having background noise or just poor quality, we've massively increased our audio quality. And we are now available on more platforms than ever before. We are available on Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Radio Public, and Spotify, and through iTunes via the Muson Mini stream. And eventually we'll probably have our own source on iTunes. But currently we're just promoting through the Muson Mini stream. So, any other announcements? Let's see. And if you ever want to hear our ridiculous ramblings before the episode starts or after the episode is over, you can listen after the credits for the pre-ramble. I always add that to the end.
News.
Parker and Jeremy, I've got some news for you guys.
News.
We've broken our first milestone. We have over 50 listeners at this point.
Is this where we start getting paid?
Huzzah!
Does that tickle your earballs?
I like money.
Check your contract. Does your contract say you get paid?
Oh, yes!
I'm doubling your current pay.
I know what double is.
So,
As
20% of our listeners are currently abroad, which is fun.
finally, I can say I'm big in Europe.
I don't know if we're going to get to the point where we travel internationally to play this game like we did with War Machine, but we'll see how that goes.
We'll be big.
We're big in Singapore.
Oh, and how to contact us? You can contact us on our Facebook page. It's Infamous Space MCP, as in Marvel Crisis Protocol, on Facebook. We also have a YouTube channel that you can get our podcasts at, and soon you'll be able to see video battle reports that I'll be posting. You can also contact us through our email address, which is infamous, infamousimcpod@gmail.com. So it's infamous MCP as in podcast. And then also, if you want to contact us via phone, it is 913-873-3476. All right. And that brings us into news.
News.
News. Just a little bit of news today. We have established that the X-Men are going to be released on November 13th, which means we're actually probably going to get another release before Christmas. So we might even see more X-Men or maybe like Spider Foes or something like that.
I want them X-Men so bad.
I know, but that means in 5 weeks I get to own Magneto, which is going to be a big day for me. So I'm excited.
Oh,
Basically, there's one thing to check off your list at that point, right? Doom.
Yeah, it's one of the 2 characters I need to complete my collection.
I swear to God, Cyclops better not run anything. That's all I care about.
He better
just
not
needs to
what?
Sit down. Run anything. He can't lead.
He's not a leader.
No.
He better not be a goddamn
I thought you
leader.
meant he better not like.
He better
flee.
not.
Like I was like, I guess he's pretty dumb. He would never know to run away. But
You guys are the worst. Cyclops is awesome. Cyclops forever.
No. All of that.
just because he follows every important character ever beyond the current timeline.
Just one and all the girls. There's like 8 girls, but Cable, I guess, is kind of important.
God.
But
So we have a time traveler who kind of affects the current timeline. And then like every ridiculously overpowered mutant is like Scott or Xavier's kid, one of the 2.
well, to be fair, if you want to talk about like power level, like if you rank all the power levels that they've done for forever and ever, Cyclops ranks really high up there. He just doesn't have a lot of utility with his power. It's all just blow holes in it. But if he actually blows holes in it, he can knock over Galactus with his thing, with his eye beams.
Maybe he should do that when Galactus tries to destroy the planet like 8 times.
He's got self-esteem issues. He's got performance issues.
He's got a I'm a piece of shit complex.
Why are you guys so mean to
much.
Cyclops?
I
The
hate
guy's only been badass, but okay.
He's been bad.
This will be your guys' little
bad
secret.
and
Oh
ass.
my
2
God.
things he is always. All right, moving on.
God.
That's going to complete our news for this week.
No, it's not.
So we're going to move in.
Oh, God.
Parker, how about you explain this to me? Why do you defend Cyclops? It's obviously a losing battle.
Well, for one thing, I'm really excited. This is actually news. We found out a little bit more about the X-Men and the way they work. They're going to be the first faction-ish thing that has 2 different leaders. And so one of them's going to be Storm, and she's going to be blue team, or the gold team leader, which is from several different iterations of the X-Men had a gold team and a blue team. And so she's going to be gold team leader, which has happened in the comic books. And the gold team stuff looks really cool. And presumably there's going to be a blue team leader. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Literally heavy, heavy wink, wink. It'll most likely be Cyclops is the blue team leader. And he'll be amazing.
I'm just saying, Cyclops couldn't carry the weight
So help me
badly that they had to make a second team leader for his faction.
God.
That's all I'm saying.
We will do. Okay, I owe you. I owe you guys a comics corner. I owe you a comics corner. When the X-Men come out,
maybe
I'm gonna rock you guys with the comics corner so hard it'll be just Cyclops, jazz hands,
I'm just
jazz
warning
hands,
you now.
just Cyclops.
I'm the one that edits the podcast. There will be no Cyclops comic corner. You can talk all you want. It's never going to print.
For 2.5 hours.
You know what? I
I
actually
don't know if anyone was listening before. Obviously, you wouldn't know. The number I gave out is Parker's number, so you can call him and tell you how badly
Everyone
he
can
is at
tune
rating
in
characters.
to
in
Parker
this
speaking
universe.
about Cyclops for an hour.
I will tell you that I don't care if anybody hears my comic corner update except you guys. I will have my say. I will have my
I will
time.
mute you. I will mute your mic.
I will.
All right, guys. Time to move on from this horrible section that contains Cyclops and move on to something important. So we are going to talk about what we're currently playing.
Are you
this game. I
out
don't
of
know if you
smoke?
guys want to say anything.
We're getting
'cause I know you haven't
smited.
been able to get many games in with everyone dying, but I'll go first. So I've gotten 2 games in recently this
fine.
week, and the first one I played Black Order into Spider Friends, or Web Warriors, I guess technically. I played Web Warriors into Black Order. My friend Jason played. He might eventually be on the podcast. It was pretty interesting. I felt really advantaged because I managed to get the proper scenarios out. So we were playing the Spider Infected mission and then also Extremis. So I was able to maneuver his guys away from me well enough to then also heal up from any damage he was able to get on me, and I pretty easily won on scenario on turn 4. I could have probably won on turn 3 if I played it a little bit cleaner, but just Black Order with so few characters, and he didn't. It was his first game of Black Order, so it's not really his fault, but he wasn't able to really collapse on me very well. And then the most recent game I played was Black Order into Web Warriors, and basically got every lucky event that could have happened to me. I got the Meteors mission, the Kree Power Core mission, and I managed to pick it up on the first action of the game. I'm pretty heavily advantaged on that one, which is why I picked it, because between Proxima and Corvus Glaive double activating on turn 1, you get to roll 4 dice to find the Power Core before your opponent even gets a chance, because I had the priority, which is a huge advantage. And then obviously I can roll 6 dice to their 2 if we have to go another round of activations. And so I have a pretty good chance of picking it up first, but that being said, I still managed to get it. And then I pretty much just made the Thanos bunker, and he couldn't get it away from me. But yeah, so I played both sides of that matchup. It's pretty fun. Although from now on, I plan on playing the list that we built on the podcast now that I've got all my models ready to go.
Do you feel like, when I heard you said you did an excellent job with Web Warriors, and it was just so much objective and control, and you barely even had to engage the Black Order, and then you got to see exactly the flip side of that in the other game. Obviously, that's, you have low sample size. You don't know everything there is to know about those two factions. Right. But do you feel like that's what Black Order has to do when they play Web Warriors, or is that what Web Warriors has to do when they play Black Order?
I feel like that was basically what we're going to talk about later today, which is how to give yourself the biggest advantage possible when you get to the table and start choosing options. Like, not just saying, well, I'd rather play 18 points than 16 points, so I'm going to pick this mission. Like, actually thinking about your list in advance. And so when I built a Web Warriors roster, I knew I was just going to try and press the win on scenario as hard as I could. And so every scenario I added in some way would allow me to affect that. And so I put in the Spider-Infected mission, knowing that if someone has a very fighty list, like Cabal or Black Order or Asgardians, I could punish them, their action economy, by if they manage to pick up a bunch of the Spider-Infected, they can't properly engage on me, because every turn they have the 50-50 chance of being pushed away with the Spider-Infected mechanic. And then also I've got impact webbing, I've got web line, I've got the ghost spider safety ability, I've got lethal protector. So I have a lot of ways to keep my guys alive, and my opponent wasn't able to pull out a good enough secure mission. Obviously getting priority is pretty nice because I got to pick the extract mission. But the secure mission ended up being extremist, which actually ended up helping me. So I think he made a pretty big mistake choosing his mission, even though he thought the healing on Thanos would help him. I never had any interest in damaging his characters, so he just, I don't think, had the experience in the matchup to know that. And so if we played again, I think it'd be different. But yeah, I think a lot of it ends up coming down to knowing which missions and which tactics cards are giving you the most leverage in the matchup.
I was going to say, that was my current event. Like what I'm doing right now is I was puzzling about Web Warriors all week, making lists, picking cards, trying to decide what I wanted to do with Web Warriors, because Spider-Man is my favorite comic book character ever. It was my very first comic book I ever bought was a Spider-Man comic, and I am really excited to play Web Warriors, but I was even more excited with this kind of story because I love objective play. So now I'm just puzzling over it. Like, how do I ensure that my objective play is going to work out in my favor most of the time? Because I feel like that's what Spider-Man and rather the Web Warriors need, is that objective play to work out for them.
Cool. Jeremy, have you gotten any games in with anything?
No,
recently?
not recently. My last game was with the Asgardians, all the brothers and sisters and friends and all of them.
Okay.
With all the cards that help them, and they like to punch things real hard and be tricky.
Side note, if you are interested in games, I'll be up at the store tomorrow. So if you want to get in some games, I'll be available.
Okay.
So moving on past what we've been playing, hobby projects. I know Jeremy has been working on some lately. You want to talk about that?
So initially with this game, I mean, I come from 40K and Privateer Press games and those kind of models. And we get these, and we're like, oh my god, I have to glue the nose of this model on, or the elbow pad. Like, this is stupid.
Well, you have to glue in, like, the earlobe. Not the entire ear, but just the earlobe.
Yeah, exactly. Or a thumb. Like, I have to glue a thumb? So, my initial response to all these models was like, good lord, okay, this is ridiculous. But I just sat there and put together, over the last 2 days, 22 models, the newest 22 models, and I tell you, they all went together. There's no mold lines, and it didn't take that long at all for 22 models. So I was wrong. Doing a great job, so high five, whatever. But yeah, I put together the latest 22 characters that have come out. They'll be all painted up soon, and that's where I'm at.
All right, I would like to go after that because I'm going to piggyback basically on everything you just said. So I have been working on a Black Order diorama. If you guys follow our Facebook page, you'd see that I made a diorama for the Web Warriors. Basically, Peter Parker versus Venom. He's like web lining a dumpster into Venom. And there's like the building, and it's all modular, it's all magnetized, so I can take them off the diorama and take all the terrain off if I need to use it. But basically, I'm doing as many of these little panel scenes as I can, and I'm trying to make a lot of fun scenes. But I'm doing the Black Order Skull Throne thing, and so I bought the Games Workshop Citadel Skulls pack, which, if you're not familiar, is a small box from Games Workshop, which is $30, and it comes with 340 individual skulls. And they're from all different races. There's Orc skulls, Tau skulls, Eldar skulls, lots of human skulls. There's a couple like big Tyranid skulls, so it looks like all kinds of the monsters that the Black Order would have slain throughout the galaxy and kept trophies of. And so I'm not exaggerating, I actually timed it, 5 hours cleaning the skulls, because each one of them has a mold line running over the top of the skull. So I have to trim the part where I clipped it off the sprue, and then like shave off this mold line that goes on the smooth part of the skull, which is going to mess up my paint job. And so I spent 5 hours cleaning skulls, and my fingers were so cramped I had to take like 5 breaks doing it, and I had to like walk around, stretch out my fingers. It was so annoying. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I like these miniatures, because there's no fucking mold lines.
Correct.
Yeah. So anyway, I should be done with the Black Order diorama soon. I've been painting Thanos most of the day. He's almost done. I'll send you guys some pictures later.
Parker doesn't model.
Parker doesn't model. He's actually, I don't know if you guys know Parker. He is a professional hand model. Can't risk.
Now, have you seen these cuticles? It's
permanent. The paint is permanent. You can't get it off your hands.
So
anyway,
honestly, I do. Brandon actually is the only person, after whittling me down for years, asking me a very simple question: why don't you model your own miniatures? Because I have traditionally always hired off other people to paint my stuff. He got me to consider painting my own stuff, and so I've painted a few models for MCP, and he with his help, which is awesome because I know nothing about modeling and painting, and he's been very, very gracious in doing that. Since COVID-19 has happened, though, I haven't been able to get out to go to his house, and I have discovered that painting by myself is a monstrous chore that I do not enjoy in any way whatsoever. But if I'm with other folks, I do enjoy it. So I'm not saying no to painting. But
what models did you paint for MCP? I don't even remember.
MODOK. We did MODOK completely.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I could remember for you painting, which was when it took 2 years for me to get you to my house on a Wednesday night paint night. Mm-hmm. And you came in, and we were going to paint Krakenoctus. I was just going to kind of tell you how to do it, and it basically ended up me just looking over your shoulder the whole time telling you what to do, because you had no idea. Basically, I taught you how to dry brush, mm-hmm. is all I did. And Krakenoctus, if you don't know, is a monster apocalypse monster. It's basically a giant squid that's the size of a skyscraper, but the model's about the size of an orange. And so he finishes painting it. We had the underside was like a light gray, and the outer part of the squid was a deep blue. And he had like a big beak and big eyes, and he's pretty funny looking. But I remember Parker looking at the finished product and holding it in his hands, and he looked at me and said, "I care about this more than my child." And I was just like, "Yeah, I know, it's that cool, isn't it?" And then And then ever since then, he was like, I'm going to paint my own models.
Yeah.
And then he comes online today and says, I don't paint. Like, come on, Parker. I know you want to.
I really struggle to do it by myself. So no, I haven't. If you're going to ask me, as long as there is a pandemic going on and I don't go places to protect my family, my modeling is going to be, when I can get on with you guys, in Discord, when I can get on buds in Discord and I can shave things off and do that kind of stuff. But my favorite kind of painting is when I'm with people. Also, I struggle with painting because I am I'm really bad at art, but not because I had a bad experience with it or I'm not good with my hands. It's 100%. There's something that artists have where they look at something in just pieces, formless, and they can picture in their mind precisely what it's going to be at the end, and they can follow that in their mind, and they have a really clear vision about what it's going to be. And if they don't have a really clear vision about what it's going to be, that's okay. They just keep forming and keep shaping and keep trying. I cannot stand that process. I'm
very much the same.
Yeah.
I have really high manual dexterity. Like, I can do a lot of very precise motions with my hands. I can do a lot of stuff like that. But I never at any point in my childhood was exposed to painting or creative outlets or love, and so I didn't ever establish that. And so I sat down and my friends got me to buy a Battle Force towel way back in 2002, and I was like, all right. So he's like, all right, you paint it. I was like, well, how do you do that? He's like, well, it's just art class. I was like, no, I never took an art class. He's like, what do you mean you never took an art class? I was like, yeah, I've never in my life been in an art class in which they asked me to paint anything. I was like, oh. And so I had to start from scratch, and I was like, well, I'm going to paint these towel, the urban camo scheme, which is white and black. And oh my God, was that a nightmare. It was such a train wreck. And so yeah, I've had to suffer through that. And so because of that, I am very focused on the modeling aspect of hobbying and very little on the painting side, but I've been getting more into the painting over the last 10 years.
Yeah. I'm excited to learn more about painting because as it turns out, dry brushing is exactly for me. It gets the job done. And the thing about dry brushing is it happens really fast.
Yeah, you see results instantly. It's
right.
Instant gratification. It's very easy to pick up. It requires very little skill, very little talent. And so a lot of people can get their stuff to far beyond the quality level they thought they could while learning how to dry brush in a lot of different ways. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm a very social painter. I lack the enthusiasm to paint if I'm not either actively playing the game or if I don't have people around me to encourage me to paint. And so I recommend anyone at home to basically get your group of friends that you play with and schedule a paint night. Get together on the same night every week. It's just like playing a role-playing game. You basically just schedule 3 or 4 hours, sit down together, and chat while you paint. And even if you can't be in the same room, call on Discord, just hang out. It makes the painting experience a lot less tedious when you have people to ask questions to suggest colors, to tell you what you're doing wrong when you're struggling with some project. And so that's really helped me over the years get into the paint. Jeremy, why don't you tell us about your favorite painting style?
Well, I do what they call this is a colloquial thing. It's called browning. Mm-hmm. It's when you start with a lot of brown and you work your way through all of the browns. And once you build up the browns, it remains brown.
Nice.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah,
right,
no,
Brandon?
I remember the first time I saw you paint, you were up at Tabletop. And I walked in and you had some board game. Was it Kingdom Death Monster, I want to say? You had 60 models for some stupid board game. And I looked down and you had primed them all brown, a solid just earth tone brown. And then you were dry brushing them a medium brown. And some of them had been dry brushed a light brown. I'm just like, what the fuck are you doing? None of these... This is a knight! He's not supposed to be brown! And you explained to me, no, that's how I paint. And I was like, okay, whatever. And I just moved on. We never talked about it.
Yeah, your guys' whole deal of working through painting and stuff. I'm usually the guy who, when was it? A couple of years ago, I helped Spencer paint an entire unit of horses. He's like, we can't get these done. I'm like, give those to me.
Yeah.
So we got it done. I mean, there's lots of different ways. When it comes to board games, I'll usually slot paint on. I don't worry about board games so much. But yeah, I've never really struggled with it.
Oh yeah.
But I struggle with modeling. I hate building models. So I mean, we all have our weaknesses. I always find everybody lands in the 2 of 3. I love to think and play the game. I love to paint the models, but I hate building.
Jeremy and his brother Jameson, they had a rating system where you would just simply rate the order in which you like to do things, gaming, like physically playing the game, modeling, and painting. And so let's see, Jeremy is a modeler, painter, player, and then his brother Jameson is a painter, modeler, player. So they both hate playing games, but they love the modeling aspect. It was so weird. And so commonly Jeremy would have an army of unassembled or unpainted, beautifully converted like green stuff models. Like he custom sculpted his own Nurgle demon prince that looked like a giant plague bear with his giant like teeth and everything. It was crazy, like over the top, way beyond what I could do. But like his entire army's unpainted basically. And then Jameson has all this like starter box board game stuff that's beautifully painted, like easily could be like, you know, best in any tournament you go to. But like he doesn't play any of these games, and they're all like plastic rubber models because he doesn't give a shit about modeling. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? And so I'm obviously a gamer, modeler, painter. So
yeah, it is.
Gaming 1, putting models together 2.
Yeah, I can definitely appreciate the fact that the Crisis Protocol models, super sweet models, they click together damn near, and I'm done with it. Like, almost to model them freaks me out because you'll cut off an arm or something, and like you'll lose it.
They do have small bits. The biggest thing that annoys me about the models is there's a lot of models that have very spindly perches, like Gamora and Star-Lord are like basically standing on a 1/16 inch wide piece of plastic, and then there's like some piece of something they're standing on. And because I use a Magna rack, so my models are magnetized to a metal tray, sometimes you have to kind of put a lot of leverage on that to get them off the tray. And so that annoys me sometimes, but for the most part, I think their models are great. The only thing I could truly complain about is sometimes their detail's a little bit shallow. Like, it's not a crisp, like, line, and so it makes it a little bit harder to paint for me. But I think overall their models are great. Like, you can't really complain too much.
You have to be able to paint a human beard. Like, that's the problem with those models. You have to be able to sketch on a beard. Because you can't really see it.
Okay. I think it's time to get into the meat and potatoes of today. Yeah, he's back.
He's both the meat and the potatoes. The alpha and the omega. The beginning and the end.
Yeah. I feel like when you go to the store, you buy a 50-cent can of stew, that's the meat and potatoes you're getting with Cyclops.
Hey, Dinty Moore beef stew is a staple in my college career.
Okay. So moving into our main topic today, we're going to finish off this Asgardian/Avengers list that we've been talking about for the last 2 episodes. It's going to be put away, and we're going to be done with it pretty soon. Today, actually. First thing we're going to talk about, there was a misunderstanding with the rulebook. We did put both Black Widows in our roster, which is technically not allowed. But the reason we did so was because I started reading... Here, let me pull up the website real quick. I'll explain it to you guys based off reading verbatim the rulebook, which was my fault. Totally agreed. It is my fault. Should have kept reading. Which is usually what I tell everybody else, like, did you read the whole section? Like, no. And here we go. So the misconception we had was we were transposing the words team and squad is the problem we had. So I was under the impression that team and squad were effectively the same term, which is just me being dumb. So roster, if you're not aware, is the collection of everything in your list, basically. So roster is your list. It is your team members, your tactics cards, and your crisis cards. The word team implies the 10 characters you bring to the game with your roster. So basically, team is just the subsection of your roster that includes characters and Infinity Stones. The word squad is the characters you actually field in a set game. So the first section of the building a roster says a team of crisis Crisis Protocol consists of any 10 characters a player chooses from their collection of miniatures, period. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, that's pretty cut and dry. And then I read the rest of the paragraph, which is 2 or 3 more sentences explaining, yes, we literally mean any combination of characters. However, the next paragraph says, even though you contain any characters, you can't duplicate alter egos. And so I should have read the next paragraph. That was my bad. But that's fine, because actually that gives us a little bit more to talk about today. Because I think there's 2 obvious swap outs for Agent Widow, which is the 3-point version of Black Widow. And I think those 2 options are either Bucky, the rogue agent, or Iron Man. And so I think Iron Man is a pretty obvious swap for her in the role that we were using her for, which is basically a skirmishing model that's good at holding flanking objectives. Because he's a ranged attacker, which means he benefits from our Marked for Death card, and he's really good at pushing people off of points. He's hard to kill. There's a lot of great things about Iron Man, even though he's not super flashy. And then Bucky, the main reason to include Bucky is that he breaks ties for both factions because he's a rogue agent trying to make your cut. Although if you're playing Asgardians, it's probably not very hard. But also, it potentially could allow you to play the till the end of the line card, and I'm a sucker for team-up cards. So it would be a really fun thing to say, like, oh, look, Captain America has 9 defense dice to whatever that comes at him, and then Jeremy would kill himself, and it'd be...
I'm getting ready to
like, who suggested this?
He makes me more mad.
The till the end of the line card is an active for Winter Soldier and Captain America. It costs 2 for each of them while they're within range 1 of each other for the entire round. They cannot be moved by enemy effects, and they combine their defense values when creating a defense pool against energy or physical attacks. Which I think is really just kind of a ridiculous card to put in your list, although it's really fun. Because our whole point of Bucky is that he's a range 5 attacker that's going to be holding an objective very far away from Captain America. So it's very unrealistic, but I think it'd be fun. If you want to go the fun route, I would suggest Bucky and then dropping one of the cards in our tactics section for till the end of the line. But I think the pretty obvious drop in is Iron Man.
I think I would have to see Iron Man do really well once for that to happen. I've played both of them. And Bucky always seems to perform more, but we've already talked about how I want all of my characters to shoot their guns. I want all of them to contribute a lot, and Iron Man is a really good scenario piece. He's not going to be somebody who you should count on to murder everyone, and I've had more luck with Bucky actually, committing murder.
Okay, well, let's talk about it in this perspective then, because we need another 3-point character, because the thing we liked most about our list so far is the redundancy of point values. So that means we would need a ranged character that costs 3 points in Avengers, because we need the Avengers tiebreaker in a lot of the lists we were building. Our options for 3-point Avengers are Ant-Man, Wasp, Iron Man. So, of those 3, which do you think is the best ranged attacker to hold a flank? Damn it.
Cyclops.
You're off the podcast.
Iron Man is probably the best. I think Bucky serves, but I think Iron Man is probably the best out of that list.
I think so too. I do think that Ant-Man and Wasp are probably fine drop-ins as well. So if you prefer those, that's obviously fine. Mm-hmm. You're pretty much just filling a 3-point Avenger.
I was going to say Wasp.
Potentially,
Wasp does have something really interesting, which is that speed long. She has stealth, so she may. And also, she can dish out a lot of damage for a 3-point character. Now that I think about it, maybe I think I might like Wasp more because she's more mobile than Iron Man. She's a lot more mobile than Iron Man. And she has stealth. So, Iron Man is -1 damage, but Black Widow, if she's on a flank, may just be unattackable.
She does only have stealth on her tiny side.
Right, and so she can't hold the objective. Yeah, that's the double-edged sword.
Which is the whole point. So she doesn't have stealth with that.
Yeah, you're right, because if you need her to do the job, then she's taking the shot.
Right, and when she's in normal size, she also doesn't have a ranged attack, although her melee is range 3. Mm-hmm. So I think there's, if you play a couple times and you find that you don't need a ranged character, then that's probably fine. I'm definitely going to start playtesting with the Iron Man slot in, because I've always liked Iron Man. Also, mine's painted, but I think Iron Man is kind of an underrated character, and he doesn't make it in a lot of lists, and he fits the role that we're looking for, and so I think it's nice.
He does get the job done. Playing a lot of games initially when the game first came out, and he was in every list, I mean, he does quite a bit of work.
The whole,
And
like,
he
I'm going to stand
tries.
on the point and just push you away repeatedly is really frustrating.
Yep.
Okay, so basically what we've established is that probably Bucky or Iron Man are your most obvious drop-ins. Wasp and Ant-Man are also great options. It's just kind of whatever you're going to build your lists around. And because we've selected the missions that we have, which kind of force fighting towards the middle of the table with just a couple flanking objectives for the most part, I think that Iron Man's probably your best pickup because he's going to fill the need that you have most importantly. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the last part of our topics today, which is we're going to talk about how to choose your options from your roster while you're setting up a match. So I would say probably the most important things, obviously, is to establish what your opponent is able to bring, because obviously this is become in different sections. You're first going to choose characters, then you're going to choose tactics cards. Excuse me, you're going to choose missions, then characters, then tactics cards. Also, getting a look at the terrain available in the game is pretty important. Knowing that certain terrain features, identifying them, that like if based on your side of the table, you might be able to block off a certain objective deployment with like maybe there's a big truck on a flank, and so if you choose deployment C, and you can, hide your truck behind or hide your objective behind the truck, might be really advantageous. Obviously, choosing your characters based on deployment is going to be pretty important. Parker, I know you're pretty limited in the number of games you've played in real life. So, Jeremy, what would you say is usually the most important thing you look for when you set up?
At the time, you look and you go, okay, is there a Hulk on their side? Is there truly, is there an Ultron on their side?
Yeah.
And if those aren't even an option, then you go, okay, well, what do I want to do to them? How do I want to do it? And also, do I understand my missions really well? And which ones don't I? And usually the way I'd look at them is I'm very comfortable with these couple, so I'm going to go with these because I understand them and I know my guys can do it. And, over time and getting better at the game, that expands exponentially. But for me, in my comfort level, that's what I look at.
Parker, do you have anything to add?
I was going to say, yeah, whenever you're trying to pick and you're trying to guess what your opponent's going to do, the biggest thing is, can you spoil, right? They're going to try to do something. They didn't come into the game with zero game plan. If they did come in with zero game plan, then you this is not really going to be a match. This is going to be you executing your game plan and then watching you do it. But if they have any sort of game plan, can you discern that? Can you find what you think they want? For example, Black Order probably wants to put stones, right? They probably want a king make to a certain degree. And so if you see that coming and you're looking at that and go, okay, well, how can I spoil that plan of my opponents? How can I make this more difficult for them to do?
Okay. So we're going to look at this from the perspective of the list that we've built, which is going to finish off our list today. So just running through it real quick in case you forgot anything. It's Thor, Loki, Valkyrie, Hela, so the 4 Asgardians. And then we combine that with Avengers, so it's Captain America, Black Widow. We're going to go with Iron Man to replace Agent Widow, Hawkeye, Rocket, Raccoon, and the Mind Gem. And so obviously our objective here when we built this list is very aggressive, melee-oriented. We're going to try and send a very powerful strike team into their list, try and break it up and go get any extraction objectives that we want, and basically force them to fight us while our very cheap ranged attacker skirmisher models spread out and take our other objectives, while hopefully our vanguard force is able to occupy the enemy for as long as possible. Moving to our tactics cards, we have Odin's Blessing, our Avengers assemble based on which faction we end up choosing, Sibling Rivalry and Drop Off, which is a great combo, Patch Up, Brace, Inspiring Monologue, and Mark for Death are our other tactics options. For our missions, our secure options, we have Gamma Wave Sweeps Across Midwest, which is the very aggressive Hulk scenario. I can't remember the name of deployment. I'll check. Gamma Wave is deployment E, which is just the 3 points along the center line. So that'll be perfect for us. Cosmic Invasion, which is the Black Order scenario. It's deployment D. We have Riot over Extremis 3, which is the healing one that is which deployment? Let's see. Deployment D as well. Our extract missions are the Montesi formula is found, which is deployment E as an echo. Struggle for the cube continues, which is deployment F. Fear grips world as the worthy terrorize, which is deployment D, and that's the rest of our missions. So we've got a lot of deployment D, a lot of deployment, or E as an echo, and also F as in Foxtrot. So all of our missions are designed to kind of force people to group up in the middle, which will help our very elite melee force that we've built. So like Jeremy was saying, first thing we need to establish what is our opponent's strategy. And so if our opponent is running like Cabal or Asgardians or maybe Black Order, they're going to be pretty similar to our strategy, which is going to be a very elite damage force. Cabal can be more range oriented though, so it's mostly Asgard, and Black Order is going to be kind of a mirror match. I'd say most of all, we probably need to be most worried about something like the Guardians of the Galaxy, where they have lots of cheap, effective characters that can spread out really well. Or maybe even the Web Warriors, who are really good about spreading out and moving stuff around, board controlling our characters and pushing them and controlling them. So, obviously identifying your opponent is very important. Knowing which faction you're going to play based on your opponent before you even start picking missions. Unfortunately, in this game, we're pretty much at the mercy of the priority rule for choosing objectives. Although you can kind of get a glean at what your opponent might do. So let's say, looking at from the extract option, I think choosing red when you have the priority is the most valuable, just from a blanket standpoint, because the extract missions tend to be the most different. They tend to have widely varying point totals more so than the blue missions do. And there's really just some very different missions. Like the Comet mission that I was talking about earlier with the Black Order. Basically putting all the eggs in one basket and fighting over one object is very strong for those elite high point cost models. Getting Hulk or Thanos to be able to pick up a single objective and have him have all of the value as long as he can stay alive is very powerful. Parker, what would you say would be most important for our list? Would you say red or blue?
I think For this one, I think it's going to be secure is going to be the most important to be able to dictate, because you want to be able, like, both of our lists are kind of like plant your feet or dig into your opponent and plant your feet. So I think having the ability to be in one spot and continually play the game and dictate how objectives are going is going to be really important. So I think there's something to be said about secure, but I like to forward up. I'm a player that likes to know where the action is going to happen. Although something I'm getting used to in this game is the ability to, grab the objectives and take them places and go and make them come to me. So I could be wrong with this. I'm big caveat, but I like the idea of having the points where I want them.
Yeah, that's pretty good. In this particular list, I think I might actually agree with you, because having a 2 in 3 chance of getting Gamma Wave and forcing it in Deployment Echo, where it's literally just spread across the center line between you and your opponent, and forcing everyone towards the middle of the table is really powerful. And in that mission, you also take damage for being spread out, so those cheaper, weaker characters are also forced to the middle if they don't want to just die of attrition. So I think in this particular one, I think I would probably also choose the Gamma Wave mission if you get access to it, which obviously you only do if you choose secure. And so if you think your opponent also wants to line up and fight you, that might determine your decision. Or if your opponent has what you would consider to be a bad matchup for you, like the Web Warriors or the Guardians of the Galaxy, I would expect. I think that you would probably want to choose more like the Extraction mission, mainly because it will prevent them from choosing something like Spider Infected, where it gives them even more board control over your models, or choosing I don't know if you would want to choose the Meteors mission, where it's all in a single objective. I tend to think that's a really dangerous one. It's the alien ship crashes in downtown is the name of the mission. Jeremy, what do you think? Yeah, I generally hate it too, unless you actually have a plan for it. So if you're not familiar, it's Deployment C, which is 3 across the center line of the table. And so there's 3 objectives pretty much evenly spaced across the table. When you interact with it, you roll 2 dice on a wild or a crit. The other two objectives are removed from play, and the objective that you just checked becomes a Kree power core, which is an interactable objective, and you immediately pick it up. That objective is worth 2 victory points at the end of the turn, but since there's no other points to pick up, it's an all or nothing scenario.
That one's random, right? That
other,
one is. I hate that.
Exactly. The other all for nothing scenario is that there's the switch flipping one where you gain control of the objective.
Been there many times.
And I think it's also deployment C. It might be a secure though. I think it is.
So let me ask you guys this: when you're building these lists, what is the dream set of scenarios? Like your opponent isn't sure what's going on, and they pick the one, right? And you're able to pick the one that you want. So for this list we've built and what we're trying to do, like what would be the dream pick? What are you hoping for?
I think the dream mission selection is Gamma Wave for this list.
Yeah.
Because all it wants to do is build a wall in front of its squishy characters and run at you with its beefy characters between like Captain America, Thor, Loki, Valkyrie. It just wants to run into a small area and deliver hate into something. And so I think Gamma Wave is the best deployment option for how it's going to affect the game. But you really don't want to play 15 points. And so if you have priority, you're going to want to choose the other mission pretty much regardless.
That's
of
what I was going to say.
Play higher points because your character is really expensive.
Yeah, I was going to say is that, I mean, the value of that alone, I mean, that is so scary. You're like, oh my god, he's going to pick that damn 15-pointer. And like, ugh, the world.
Yeah. I was actually going to say exactly the opposite. I actually love the idea of putting Gamma Wave down because my opponent might be really scared. Unless they have a very specific game plan that loves 15-point games. And if I run into that person, then yeah, guess what? They had a really great team for 15 points that was a little better than my team for 15 points. Like, I have a 15-point plan with this team, right?
Well, that's specifically why I brought up the Guardians and the Web Warriors, because both of them have a lot of really good 3-point characters, including their faction leaders. And so they're going to have more characters than you, guaranteed. And both of them are going to be able to play within that mission fairly well, I think, because they outnumber you so much. And so that's mainly why I was worried. But if you're playing 15 points against Black Order or 15 points against other Asgardian lists, I think you're okay.
And even then, if Gamma Wave is part of the objective, right? If you're playing with Gamma 2, Web Warriors are going to have to go through your line, right? Unless they try to completely circumvent it and come around to the back. Which, I mean, some of them are fast enough to do that. And Guardians, there are a couple Guardians that have speed long, but they're all like close range fighters. All of the Guardians are, except for Star-Lord and Rocket. So if you can kill...
Right, but we've got Star-Lord and Rocket, which are two pretty good range damage dealers, but their other characters are tough enough and put out enough damage to actually fight you for a little bit, but it's mostly that you're going to be noticeably outnumbered is really the problem.
You're already numbered by 1, right?
Well, if our core of the list is Thor, Loki, and then beyond that, it's kind of whatever you want. But Thor and Loki are taking them 9 points, 10 if you take the Mind Stone. So we're only getting basically 3 characters, and your third character, it's kind of limited in what it can be.
Valkyrie, Black Widow.
I guess we could take 4 for not taking the Mind Stone.
Yeah. Just if you're fine without the Mind Stone, which I think we're fine with losing the Mind Stone for a whole other character, you still have 4 characters. Yeah,
but Guardians or Web Warriors can bring 5 3-point characters that potentially have a lot of damage or a lot of board control. I'm not saying you can't win. I'm just saying 15 points is not your ideal setup.
Sure, but the point I was making was if you bring a 15-point scenario, I don't think there are going to be many opponents that are really excited to see that. If you see Guardians and they have all the 3-pointers they need to make sure they have 5 characters, all 3 points, then yes, they might notice that and take that advantage. Same thing is true for Web Warriors. But if they brought Web Warriors and they only brought 2 3-point characters in their construction, right? If they just took Ghost Spider, Spider-Man, and then all their other guys are 2s or 4s, then they may not necessarily outnumber you. I think I am willing to play those odds That's why I think
Sure.
that's why I think Gamma Wave, even though Gamma Wave is 15 points, either my opponent has to have exactly the right Guardians or Web Warriors list to take advantage of it, or it's the other 95% of games or whatever I can usually anticipate where they won't like to play at 15 points, or they don't have that specific list in Guardians or Web Warriors to play 15 points and have a significant advantage over me. So
I will say that you would much rather play Gamma Wave at 15 points than to play like Spider Infected and Extremis against them.
right,
Because they'll just run laps around the table on you and you'll never get a hold of it.
precisely.
But
Or
at least if you're playing Gamma Wave, you're forcing them to the center for the most part. It's just the thing I'm worried about is having your opponent activate last, especially if they're like Web Warriors, they have a lot of board control. They'll just bleed your activations out and try and control you as best they can. And then the last two activations they have that go after you are going to jump behind you, push your guy off the point, and score 3. And there's nothing you can do about it because you're outnumbered. Like, that's the kind of stuff I'm worried about, less so than, like, my opponent just gets to punch me more times. But, again, I think Gamma Wave is much better to play than, like, one of the hard
It's also
out
really
maps for
funny
this
to
list.
look at your opponent's stuff. You look over there and you're like, they can't even build a correct, like 15 points really screws them. And you're like, okay,
Yeah, I
get ya.
remember...
Do it.
Yeah, I remember when I first started doing that Hulk, MODOK, Captain America list.
Yep.
And intentionally playing Gamma Wave every game I could. And people were
Yep.
just, like, not ready for it yet because they hadn't... Like, no one played Gamma Wave. Everyone was just playing, like, the cubes again. And so, the first time you see it's very jarring because it's just, like, so much damage in a small space. And it out-activates you every time. It's basically was like playing Black Order before Black Order was released.
I like throwing in strange things like this and making your opponent see things they've never seen before, because the likelihood of them making the correct decision and being very clairvoyant is low. Remember, if you're sitting at down at the table and your opponent has not listened to this podcast, then you say, "Oh," and then and they say, like, you say, "Here, I want to have Gamma Wave," and your opponent goes, "Okay. Well, why would they be willing to pick a 15-point list?" And look at your stuff and they go, they must have some reason why to do 15 points. I'm looking at my stuff, and I have not practiced 15 points because that's not something I do very often, because the great majority of games end up falling at 17 or above. So I'm going to go ahead and go with what I know and pick 17. And you pat yourself on the back for double faking them out, and I don't think it's that hard. And even if they say, okay, I'll call your bluff. Let's go ahead and see what happens when your list plays at 15 points. You go, okay, cool, and you drop your 15-point list, and it's still 4 characters, and it still feels great. And it's playing that objective you wanted, which was Gamma Wave. That's the thing you wanted. I think being willing to go down to 15 points and play that way is, first of all, not that sincere of a risk, actually, and second of all, something that's willing to be played as long as you're getting that objective that you want.
So, as a whole, Jeremy, do you usually heavily... I mean, I know it's been a while since you played. Do you usually have a plan going in, like, my list wants to play these scenarios, or if you win priority, which secure extractor you're going to pick? Do you usually have a plan going in?
Oh, absolutely. But my plan is usually different than anyone else's. My plan is, again, I usually have hammers. I usually have something that makes your guy stronger, more powerful. And I just want that on the table because I want to hit things really fucking hard. But along with that, we want to win and be successful and all that business too. But really, like, I love the game for being able to create these moments of, oh man, this is going to be awesome. And I even look at that when it comes to choosing the scenario pieces. Like, that's a part of the fun for me.
Parker, do you feel like there's a best option on just generically? Do you think that choosing extract over secure is normally the right call, unless, like, in this specific instance, we have a plan?
Like, which one do I like to pick in general?
Yeah.
General, I like to pick the blues in general, and the main reason why is I like to pick where the fight's going to happen, and I know extract can throw that for a loop, and they purposely have spoiler extracts where, like, for example, the Kree, right, where that has 2 points for every time you are holding onto it, so it asks you to move around the board and be more mobile. But my particular style, what I appreciate is knowing where the fight's going to happen on the board, and that's why I like to pick the blues. I like to know that yes, there are objectives that are going to be picked up and moved around the board, and I'll have to track those down, but I know this is where my fight's going to happen, and my force is ready to fight here, here, and here. So I like blues.
I'm sorting the missions right now.
So I prefer secures.
Okay, so secure missions range from, there's 1 deployment beta, 1 Charlie, 3 Delta, 2 Echo. Extractions have Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot. And so I think there's a bigger variety of deployment options in Extract, and I think it's pretty obvious. I'm looking through. There's only 2 of each at most in Extract. There's 3 Deltas in Secure. I think if you want to choose where the mission's going to be fought, I think Extract is actually more impactful, although Secure obviously lasts throughout the game, as opposed to the Extracts who are only the one time.
I
think...
Go ahead.
Sorry, I think the biggest determination is if you should choose Extract over Secure is who has the most characters, for the most part. Mm-hmm. Because, and there's also, obviously there's a lot of exceptions to these concepts, but there's a lot of Extracts that have different deployments. There's a lot of Extracts that have very specific rules on what you can do once you pick things up. So melee-based lists, there's a lot of Extract objectives that say you can only move once, you take damage if you don't attack, you can only pick up 1 objective at a time. And so specifically taking those, regardless of their deployments, regardless of the other things they do, knowing that, well, my opponents generally are going to be chasing me because I have a board control list that's range-based, like kind of like Web Warriors where they like to control people, or like a range-based cheap character list, or maybe even Cabal because they've got a decent amount of ranged characters. If your opponent has a lot of ranged abilities, you probably don't want to pick an Extract mission that's going to hinder your ability to get to them. And so I think looking at those things before you choose which, if you're going to choose red or blue, is going to matter a lot. In this one, I think anytime we can force our opponent to bunch up or advantage, because I think our list is just designed to win through melee. Yeah, I think just the most important part about this is people, because at least locally, I see a lot of our locals that are pretty casual. They will just throw three missions that they know in their list and not worry too much about if it actually helps them. So obviously choosing missions, intentionally trying to build a list around missions even, that can advantage you a lot. Like the extremist thing, if you're playing as Guardians or Avengers, who both are really good about taking a lot of damage without losing any characters, having access to Odin's Blessing to stop damage, having access to Bodyguard, and then being able to heal yourself up with extremists once you've taken that damage, or even play like Patch Up or Med Pack to heal your characters back up to a more reasonable amount of hit points, are all really valid ways, because I think a lot of people don't realize yet that you're going to get to play the mission that you want 2/3 of the time is really helpful. All right, I think we've pretty much covered missions, so let's move on to tactics cards. In this particular list, I think it's pretty obvious what you should choose most of the time, because we have 2 faction cards that's going to be determined by which faction you're playing. Sibling Rivalry and Drop Off are going to be in every list, and so 3 of our cards are already chosen, so we only have to choose 2 cards from Patch Up, Brace for Impact, Inspiring Monologue, and Marked for Death. Obviously, Marked for Death is going to be mainly dependent on if our opponent has any characters that we need the card to deal with.
Brace is a great card every time, I feel like.
I don't know about every time, but it is certainly going to be useful more often than not.
I don't.
So just real quick, Marked for Death says 2 allied characters that are within 5 of the same enemy can each spend 1 as an active card. This round, enemy character loses and cannot gain stealth and becomes speed short, and cannot modify or reroll its defense dice. So even if you don't have ranged characters specifically, being within 5 of a character is pretty easy, and if you have someone that mods their defense dice pretty hard, it's always pretty nice. Like, I was playing against Web Warriors, and he took Black Widow in Web Warriors, so she's getting the reroll, and she succeeds on blanks, and so the rerolls get kind of out of hand sometimes, and so sometimes taking Marked for Death is worth it. Slowing down those characters, like if they pick up the objective, like on an extract mission, like if you're playing the Kree Power Core mission and they find it, you can next turn, if you get the priority, run up there and Mark for Death them so he can't move away long after he's picked up the power core, and so it gives you a lot more opportunity to deal with him before he runs away, and you lock down his rerolls. So in a situation like that, obviously you want Marked for Death. As Parker said, Brace for Impact is amazing. It's not very complicated. Obviously, if your opponent has the ability to throw size 4 terrain at you, you should probably take Brace for Impact if it's available.
I mean, it causes your opponent to waste an action regardless.
Yeah, and I'll say a lot of the time, your opponent will forget you have Brace, and they'll spend a lot of power using it, or if they see you have it, they'll tend to not use their throw abilities because they think it'll be wasted, and Brace is so cheap. And so a lot of times they'll end up saving you more damage than it really should, because your opponents just don't do it until it's like actually used.
And it will always be used. That's what's good about it too. Always.
I was actually about to say, unless you forget to use it, which does occur.
Yeah, that's true.
I have lost an objective point before, going, oh man, that throw was a really smart move. Great job. And I look down at my cards, I'm like, shit, I have Brace for Impact.
Now that you've picked up your model and it's over on the board, and you're like,
it's under shit.
The classic. I wish there was something I could have done.
If only. But that's impossible. There's no way I could have done anything.
So then the last two cards, which I think are the most matchup dependent, Patch Up and Inspiring Monologue. Surprisingly, I think Inspiring Monologue is actually the most matchup dependent card, even though I tend to take it a lot. Inspiring Monologue is amazing on missions where you know one character is going to be more important than other characters. So knowing your matchup a lot, knowing that your opponent isn't going to be able to deal with, like, let's say Thor, for example, someone who has a decent amount of defense dice, or Captain America who has really consistent defense dice, or even Black Widow who has really consistent defense dice, being able to pick up either the most important extraction element or the multiple extraction elements, and then play Inspiring Monologue on them and be able to potentially defend a huge amount of damage. Especially on characters that get multiple rerolls. Like, if you have Inspiring Monologue access in Web Warriors, and you get extraction tokens, you can Spider Senses reroll, Greater Responsibility reroll, and Inspiring Monologue reroll your dice. Like, and it's just silly the amount of rerolls you can get on a defense roll. Not to mention if you've got characters that have a large amount of dice, like Captain America, that succeed really often. Like, I've definitely played Inspiring Monologue and have Captain America just live through just ridiculous amounts of incoming attacks. So having Inspiring Monologue available and also Brace for Impact paired with it, so they can't get around the defense dice as easily, very, very strong combo. In matchups where you don't think that you'll be able to use your dice because they have a huge amount of throws, or if they have a lot of ways to avoid defense dice, don't forget to watch out for people like Venom who cancel out your defense rolls. Your modifications, or if your opponent's running Marked for Death. Like, if you see Marked for Death in their pool of 8, maybe you want to take Patch Up instead of Monologue.
I think our Marked for Death is a hot take. I don't think we're going to see Marked for Death very often in lists.
Well, you say that, but Web Warriors are pretty fucking popular right now. I think it's actually a pretty good pickup.
Oh no, I'm confident that it's awesome. I just think we got the sleeper hit.
It deals with stealth.
Sleeper hit.
2020 sleeper hit.
Yeah. It deals with stealth.
Yeah.
I like it because it deals with stealth.
No,
did you guys see the new Criminal Syndicate card for Super Stealth?
Mm-hmm. And just in case you need the most stealth.
Yeah. So it is just like their other card. I can't remember what it's called, the one that gives them priority. But basically, any number of Criminal Syndicate characters can spend 2 power. For everyone that does, they can only be targeted within range 2 for the remainder of the round.
You can be punched in the teeth or nothing.
Which is very short range. I don't know if you were aware of that.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like Venom is like, my arms are short.
Yeah, the criminals, the more Criminal Syndicate stuff comes out, the more... they may actually be the first bad guy I think about. Because I never think of bad guys. I always just go, but what about the heroes? What kind of heroes can I play? Criminal Syndicate might be the first bad guy army that I'm really excited to try.
It's also amazingly synergetic with the Spider Foes because they have like 3 of the same characters on their team.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so I think most games, just if you don't know what to take, obviously you're going to take one of the faction cards. You're going to take Sibling Rivalry and Drop Off. Jeremy, if you had to pick 2 of the remaining 4 of Patch Up, Brace for Impact, Inspiring Monologue, and Mark for Death. Which 2 are you taking, you think, without even knowing?
If I'm not sure, I take Brace for Impact and Inspiring Monologue. Done. Okay. Like, it's a done deal. I'm comfortable. Those are going to get used regardless. They will be used.
How do you feel about Patch Up in general? Are you not a big Patch Up fan?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to go that direction, I'm probably not taking that list.
Yeah.
I just don't worry
Well, the
about
main
it.
reason I bring it up, because in this list, if you have Loki with the Mind Stone, he's getting 3 power a turn. And so he's pretty good at fueling it. And being able to put 4 or 5 hit points back on Captain America's injured side. Like, once they get him almost dead, and you're just like, surprise, he's back to full. Like,
see,
I feel like that's going to be like a game-changing play.
And that's the problem for me, is I want Captain America dead anyway.
Yeah, even if he's on my team, he's got to die.
I want those captains and his Americas dead!
Dead!
I feel like Jeremy is just like the J. Jonah Jameson of Captain America. That guy is a menace! We gotta get him out of here!
That guy.
He's the captain. Who made him a captain? I don't understand.
Not my captain. Hashtag not my captain.
Hashtag dead.
I think it's really strange how much hate flows through you guys towards the leaders of various Marvel comics teams. I think it's very interesting.
I don't even like Captain America that much. Like, I think he's an interesting character, and I'm glad he exists. But I definitely like his mechanics way more than his fluff. Like, I'm so happy that there is a character that does what Captain America does, as opposed to, like, just liking the characters. Where I think I like Thor as a character more than I like his mechanics, but I play Thor because he's fun.
I'm just all offense. That's my issue with almost every game. I'll take more offense, even though defense is the smart play. I'm just like offense all the way.
So what if, just imagine for a second if you would, you're playing the Worthy, so there's the 4 hammers that add to your dice rolls, and Captain America gets all 4, right? Just imagine for a second.
All right. Okay,
and then he does his shield toss, and he's rolling 8 dice on shield toss, ricocheting on wilds for an extra attack. And so he can throw his shield effectively 4 times because you're rolling 8 dice each.
So Captain America isn't running around the table picking all this shit up.
No, but he's standing next to the opponent who is holding them. So when they die and he's still alive, he picks them up.
Well, here's the thing. He couldn't pick them up.
I disagree. He's the only one that can pick them up because he's Captain America. And he can pick up hammers. He has one
not in my list.
To pick up hammers. Goddamn it.
Oh, God, that would make me so mad. He would block all the attacks, and then he would throw a fucking shield at me and destroy my mob. Oh my God!
Bing. Just like bouncing it off your dome.
No, it's the worst.
Kind of wish we had built a second list to like a what I would take in this example. I think our cards are also very obvious on when you should play them, when you shouldn't. I don't feel like there's a lot of good discussion on the tactics card side.
Well,
I do think
we purposely we purposely did that, right? Like, we didn't want there to be. I know for me, when I pick tactics cards, I definitely steered the conversation in the direction of I want to know what I'm doing most of the time with tactics cards, and I usually only have 2 or 3 tactics cards that I'm ever debating on, and generally speaking, I already know what 5 I'm taking most of the time, and I have 2 that might switch out if I see something really obvious. Like Mark for Death is a great switch out where you're like, okay, well, obviously I'm playing Web Warriors and they have Black Widow, so I'm going to find a use for this at some point. But, like, I like the idea that my tactics cards are I'm counting on them. But I want tactics cards to swing the game really hard, because tactics cards are one-use items, right? They only happen once, and so I need that one use to be really impactful. So I'm planning on taking exactly certain cards that I'm sure are going to give me that impact. The only faction that I'm ever like, whatever tactics cards more or less is Guardians, because I can always turn those into impact with the rerolls. But one of the things about tactics cards in this game, this is one of the reasons why, you and I have had many conversations about how some tactics cards just seem so bad, because they can't possibly be giving you the impact that other tactic cards do. When you only have the ability to take so many, and some of them seem so strong and some of them seem so weak, why would you ever pick the weak ones? Because you're not going to be able to just fill your deck with those. This isn't a trading card game where you have to have some weaker cards and some stronger cards. This is, you only get 5. That's it. So take the 5 that you're ever going to use. Plan on having them used every game. I would be upset as a player if I ended games where most games I had 4 tactics cards unused. Something's wrong. I picked the wrong ones. I should have almost all of them used every game, if not all of them used every game, because I use them for some great advantage.
Yeah, I mean, as we stand now, there's 80 currently available cards, and so you have far more than you could ever consider putting on a list. I think for selecting them, obviously you need to break them down to categories and choose what's best for you, but I think there's a lot that will never get played at this point. Like Ricochet Blast from the starter set is a pretty obvious big miss for a design point. It's more there for aesthetic than it is for actual functionality.
Yeah, some of them have such stringent stipulations to even activate. You have to go through so many hoops that when you compare something like Brace for Impact to Ricochet Blast, and you're like, both of these are equally valid options to go into your slot. You're like, well, obviously the one that can happen instead of the one that might happen for a cost sometimes for a weaker attack than some of my characters can put out. I'm clearly there's a winner here, and for that reason, I think most of the time, maybe even the hallmark of a really strong list is that you build characters and you planned on certain of those tactics cards, and those cards are going to get played almost every game. That means you automatically have an advantage over an opponent who's bringing tactics cards that they only plan on using 2 or 3 situationally. Well, you're winning the game before anybody ever rolls the dice, because you have more resources than they do, even though the points values are the same and the objectives are symmetrical and everything's supposed to be balanced. You balance the game in your favor because you brought 5 tactics cards and you're going to use all 5.
I think you can maybe 4 or whatever choices I take. I usually have 1 wild card, right? And I think you should. Just because, unless you're in a tournament, you're the number 1 guy in your meta or whatever, you have to win. But just trying something weird, putting a card in there that you aren't exactly sure how it's that stuff is kind of cool sometimes. It'll pop out and you're like, oh my god, that might have worked. I don't know. Just getting an interesting card in there from time to time is something too. Oh, God. Is it about Cyclops? No.
So what I'm saying is, Jeremy, what I'm saying is, Brandon, is when we were building this list, I was proud to say that my 5 tactics cards are pretty much chosen for me, because that means I'm going to use them.
So the tactics cards I took in my Black Order list, I'll just talk about the ones that were interesting, but I took All You've Got and Power of the Cosmos against Brian. So Power of the Cosmos is the AoE attack that Thanos has. It's a Thanos-only card, but it's not affiliated. It's an AoE 1, does 6 dice of damage, energy, costs 0, but the card costs 4 to play. But it gets +1 AoE per Infinity Stone the character has. Nice. And so it's AoE 3 if Thanos has 2 stones. I didn't have the Reality Stone on Thanos. I put it on Corvus that game. But I triggered Power of the Cosmos and made a 5-person AoE 3 attack that did 10 damage. And so I did 10 damage to his team with Power of the Cosmos, which was pretty fun. But I played All You've Got on Black Dwarf. And so Black Dwarf played it while injured and died. But I think it was probably worth it. Basically, the situation was Thor had just flipped to his injured side, and Spider-Gwen was there full health. And so I activated Black Dwarf. He had 3 damage on him on the injured side, 10 power. and I dazed Ghost Widow and did like 6 damage to Thor, and then he died when I played it. So, but I thought it was probably worth it because he was gonna lose that fight anyway, because Thor versus Black Dwarf is fairly comparable, even though Black Dwarf will probably lose in the long run. But with the Spider-Gwen there as well, then I was clearly going to lose. And so instead of just dying probably before I got to activate again, I got to do 2 more attacks into him. But I think that's a card that's probably not going to get played a lot.
Yeah, but at the same time, all you've got in Black Order actually has a natural advantage, which is it's a card that is going to turn into likely victory points, because Black Order gets victory points from KOing others. So,
true.
So like if you remember Black Order, if you know you're always going to be down, usually in numbers, your opponent's going to have more models than you. Then all you've got is a great way to make one of your models count for 2 at a crucial moment. You're like, okay, well, this model is about to die. I'm about to lose him. There's nothing I can do. He's not going to be able to contribute to the game anymore. But I can make this tactics card turn into a victory point for me and a lost character for him because I've got it. And that's a fantastic value in Black Order specifically. It's so much of a better value than some other forces that put up. So like I said, I think all you've got is a great choice if you're planning on Black Order. It's situational again. It's more situational than some other cards because it's not proactive. You have to wait for something. You have to wait for a good situation for this to be beneficial. But if you have that situation like you're describing, well, you turned lemons and lemonade, and you doubled your value because you're playing it in Black Order. So, I think there are cards out there that are.
I don't know
strong.
that you double it necessarily, but it certainly has an additional part.
Sorry, yeah, maybe not. It's not 100%, but you're multiplying it by extra because you're contributing to the win condition of the game. Like one card that I think that I don't know where it's going to see play, but in my Guardians list, in all my Guardians list, I have Follow Me, and it seems kind of strange to play a 6 power card because when are you going to have that? As it turns out, Star-Lord has 6 power all the freaking time when he has the Power Stone. So. Star-Lord using Follow Me is actually really easy to do. So I don't think that you automatically have to use the cards that everybody plays all the time in order to have a really clear game plan for them. But I think you should if you're picking a tactics card. I think you should have a plan for using it, even if it's a situational plan or it's a it's something that. Would be awesome if it happens. If you're still, then even if it's a little Machiavellian, if it's a little bit of a Rube Goldberg machine, I think you can tolerate that if the payoff's going to be something really excellent, like All You've Got or Follow Me or some of these other really impactful cards that they put so many gates on because you have to walk through all of them to get to this really cool effect. But if your list reasonably, reliably can count on that happening, then I think it's a good choice. But again, I'm a player who likes to shoot all the guns. If I have 5 tactics cards out in front of me and I didn't use some in one game, something wrong happened. I want to use all the guns. Fire all the guns. Fire them.
Parker, since you enjoy firing all the guns, I'll tell you that what is quickly becoming my favorite character in the game is Corvus Glaive.
Yeah.
He applied 14 hits to Spider-Man. He died.
Yeah.
He was like, I'll just roll my 3 shit. Like, re-roll all you want. Your max is 6.
Jeremy, you and I weren't talking very much, but I told Brandon this many times. When Corvus Glaive came out, all of my lists all of a sudden had Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight in them. And Brandon and I agreed that's probably not okay. I probably don't have to do that, but I wanted to. I wanted to put Corvus...
Just shoehorning 7 points of Black Order into every list is probably not the way to win.
I told myself, I was like, I have all these lists, but I can't think of a way to spend 7 points better than these 2 models, so I'm just going to put them in everything. And I did for a little while, and we decided it probably wasn't the right move. But
I think it's a misconception that you need that 7-point module. I think you'd be much better off looking at the 5-point module of Corvus Glaive with the Reality Stone.
Sure. Yes, I think 5-point Corvus Glaive Reality Stone is amazing. It's so good. In terms of 15, it's really amazing that you look at a 5-point character that's a 4-point character plus just 1 extra effect and go, yeah, I bet that's about as good as Doctor Strange. And you're like, yeah, probably. But really? he's a 5-point character and he has all these goodies. How could that possibly be in the same league? And then you start looking at just the basic dice efficiency of that guy, and you're like, oh man, he is going to trade up those 5 points every game. So good.
I will say, I think Corvus Glaive is better in Black Order than he is in most factions, but having access to the bonus dice from Thanos, the place from Thanos, the double activate with Proxima, Mothership, and Execute. I mean, you can get Execute out of Black Order, but you're already taking Proxima, and I think Corvus is obviously best with Reality Stone. It compounds really well with how many dice he rolls, and with his damage reduction he already has. It makes him very survivable. I think he's obviously best in Black Order, and I think it's a mistake to take him in every fucking list. But he is definitely something people should look at. But I think it is hard to bring in like a 5-point mercenary into a lot of factions.
That being said, MODOK was dropped in the list a lot, like in the early stages of the game. Like you just...
Well, that's when there was 12 characters, not, hold on a second, give me 51.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Jeremy, I think I interrupted you.
No, I was just getting ready to imagine a list with Corvus Glaive and his wife and, Black Panther and all of the, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that's Wakanda.
I mean,
all right.
Honestly speaking, like, not only does he get everything he wants in Black Order, but I think Black Order wants him just as much. So,
Jeremy, my kooky idea, my Rube Goldberg machine that I made was actually Proxima and Corvus in Guardians, because Star-Lord can drop off Proxima, and she is currently one of the only characters in the game that can do a 0-cost attack with drop off lets you do a 1-0-cost attack with the character that you drop off, and her 0-cost attack allows her to immediately teleport. And so if you want to, you can pick up Proxima, drop off, she throws her spear, teleports there, and then starts eating whatever it is over there. I really, really liked the idea, but it's
that
very
doesn't,
much...
You,
Go ahead.
You're not allowed to do that. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that in real life.
Yeah, it'd be silly. But Proxima is a bad guy.
I'm just imagining Jeremy is like, nah, they're not friends. Like in a tournament, like
they don't even like each other. You understand that? Parker, come tell them why.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Just tell them why. Tell them about
Proxima Midnight.
Proxima Midnight was wronged by this person in the past, so they would never do that.
Proxima Midnight would never join a team with Star-Lord for these reasons.
All right, so quick summary for the list building. When you're selecting all of your cards versus your opponent in the game, obviously you're at the mercy of priority. When you gain priority, it is a big decision, choosing secure versus extract mainly. Being able to know the missions that you have, how to apply them correctly versus your opponent. Primarily, you just need to take some time, really go into the think tank, and mentally exercise choosing your options, like knowing when you're going to choose which missions versus which people. And don't be afraid to commit to a strategy and have the option of that mission not being an option, because you got to remember 2/3 of the time it's going to work out for you, which is probably enough to lean on. And worst case scenario, I think a lot of players currently are still pretty casual in their list choosing, which is actually a huge part of the game. Like I just described earlier, I played as Web Warriors versus Black Order and as Black Order versus Web Warriors, and they're two dramatically different games. Like very one-sided scenario games in both directions for me. Because in one game, the Black Order player spent a lot of time thinking about scenarios and choosing them correctly, and the other person just picked what they normally play with their normal lists, which is way more important when you're playing a low model count faction or a heavy board control faction. That's very important that you're taking full advantage of your abilities and covering up your weaknesses as hard as you can. And so don't be afraid to use your advantages as much as you can to gain an advantage, if that makes sense.
I was going to say that it just so happens that our topic tonight is about picking, the scenario that is appropriate for your list, but there are some lists that automatically care more about scenario. Like that is actually a thing. We've happened to talk about, if you've noticed, we've spoken a lot about the Black Order and Web Warriors this session, but that's because those two factions care so much about what kind of scenario you're playing. There's some armies and lists that are going to be more flexible, and you can purposely, if you want to just play whatever scenario your opponent picks, if you want to be able to just do kind of generic stuff, you can build a list that is more flexible with that kind of thing. It's going to be less dire. But this game is still an objective game. You win and lose based on objectives most of the time. Unless you're playing Captain America, then Jeremy will just table flip to you, and that is how you win.
Yeah, I won't even play the game. It's over. Get your W.
It's worth driving to Kansas City to play games just so you get free wins against Jeremy if you play Captain.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to...
What are you playing? Black Order, so I've got Thanos, Black Dwarf, Corvus Glaive, and Captain America. He's like, God damn it! It's just like fucking throws.
If you need a W that bad, I'll just give it to you. That's fine.
One of my favorite moments ever in this game is when I walked up to a table where you two were playing, and Brandon, Jeremy was so mad at Captain America. It was like turn 3 or 4, and you were just.
I think
furious.
I remember this game.
And Brandon, you said you do see there's a really big like dumpster right there. Your character could easily pick up that dumpster and throw it into Captain America, and he would die. You actually have him almost dead. And Jeremy just looks at the board and goes, no.
He was so blind with rage. He was like, that motherfucker is going to die. I'm going to shove this stick so far up his ass.
And you go, no, I'm going to kill him without using dumpsters.
What I need is my entire army focused on one model.
I don't need no instructions to know how to rock.
You got it.
Yeah.
Fucking hate that guy so much.
It was perfect.
Oh boy. All right. Well, I think that pretty much covers our initial topic. I think most people would agree that the mission selection is a lot more important than people think, and probably the most important part of list selection. Obviously, knowing how to counter your opponent with the strategies you've already built into your list, but if you follow the concepts that we've talked about in the previous 2 episodes on how to properly build a list and build a roster that can get you into most games, I think you'll be fine at this step as long as you keep to those tactics. Don't just make easy, willy-nilly decisions. Don't just wing it. Actually follow your thought process. You should have selected scenarios and tactics cards that benefit your lists and cover up your weaknesses for a reason. Just stick to that. I think you'll be fine. This has just been our intro section on building lists and selecting lists, and a little bit down the road, after we've talked about a lot of other stuff, we'll come back to this and we'll talk about some more in-depth strategies that we've discovered along the way. But until then, we're pretty much going to put list discussion to the side for now, and anything we do in the future is just cool dojo that we thought about.
And to be fair, one more thing. To be fair, if you are that kind of player where the gaming is the last thing you care about, the thing you care about most is playing the models in the universe or playing the models that you painted and modeled, and you're really excited to do it. Some of this really is just, I really want to see Thor, pick up the hammers in a worthy mission because I love, Fear Itself, the miniseries where the worthy were introduced in the Marvel Universe. If you wanted to do that, and that was your motivation for playing, and you didn't care who won or lost, that's another way to pick scenarios.
I take huge offense at you trying to squeeze a comic corner into this fucking episode. You did not pre-approve
that. Was not an
this.
attempt at doing that. That was actually 100% an attempt at validating. You mentioned an earlier episode, right? You said in early episodes, take those advices. One of the things that Jeremy said in earlier episodes is sometimes he just plays the thing that he thinks is going to be cool. So,
Jeremy, I'm going to need you to weigh in here. Was that an attempt to comic corner me?
Wait. Parker, you motherfucker, you did it.
2 versus 1.
You did it. We talked
You're
about
it. You're off the podcast.
We
Get
talked
out.
about it. We talked about it.
You're gonna cut my pay in half, aren't you?
What did you do?
Yeah.
What did we do?
You get 1/3 pay until this issue is resolved. Jeremy is getting. I already double it. Jeremy's getting triple pay until you get your normal pay again.
That's the opposite. That's
Thank
the reciprocal of my demotion.
Thank you.
Darn it.
All right, so real quick, since we're kind of on the topic and Jeremy brought it up before the episode started, do we think this is more of a tournament game or more of a casual game? I'll let Jeremy start since he was the one that introduced the topic before the podcast.
Ooh, God. I would love to say it. I'm always looking for that casual, perfect spot. And every time I find it, and I'm like, this is the one. But man, this game is incredibly deep. It is not easy to get a win unless you know what you're doing. So I'm going to lean towards it's more of a tournament game. I mean, it's if you want to blow something up and you want to punch something really hard and that's fun for you, okay, it's fun. You're not going to win, but it's fun. That's where I
So coming from War Machine, which all of us have, we were all pretty competitive War Machiners back in our day. We were pretty big deals in our local meta. And so anyway, I think the most important part of having a casual game is that anyone can show up and have fun. And the most important part of a competitive game is a clean, precise rule set that's easily understood, has very few, massive imbalances. And the second important part of competitive play being
gray areas.
I also want to put this very well. Let's see. I would say just parody, really. Like obviously you can't have a tournament game.
People kneel before
where everyone
you.
plays the same thing because it's the best, right? Like you need to have a way to have everything be at least reasonably balanced, and that aesthetic will naturally separate players. Obviously, that's good in the casual aspect as well. Being a severely competitive player myself, I know that in the past I have avoided games because they're solo casual or because really just a lot of things. It's hard to put these into words. There's been a lot of games I've played over the years. Anything from Dungeons and Dragons to War Machine to Monster Apocalypse, like wide variety of games. The most important thing for the casual player is that it's simple and that it's fun. The most important thing to a competitive player is that it's precise and that it's balanced. So, in my opinion, the most important thing for a game company is to follow all four of those premier topics. And in my instance, I tend to sacrifice the more casual options for the more competitive options. Because if you have a competitive game that is balanced, that is functional, that does not have a lot of rules questions, that does not have a lot of counterintuitive wording, that is not very vague, that you're not constantly trying to figure out how this works, or why is this massively imbalanced, why is the giant dragon guy so much stronger than everyone else and I can't have fun. I think if you have a competitive game, it's easy to make that competitive game casual. If you have a casual game, it's not necessarily easy to make it competitive. And so that's, for me, the most important thing is when I say competitive is way more important. Also because it tends to be that a lot of the competitive players tend to drive the communities. And not that, you have to come play my competitive game, and you have to play against me, and I have to win against you or anything like that. It's more that the person that's willing to put in the time to organize events, to schedule game nights, to encourage other people to come, to do all the community building, is more likely to show up to a game night when that game is good, and that it is competitive, it is balanced, and they put the work in. So that being said, I think the biggest turnoffs to casual gaming, hands down, are negative play experiences. And that generally comes from unforgiving rule sets, unforgiving scenarios, stuff like that. Like spending all this time, the hobbyers have assembled their models, they've painted their models, they've put in all this emotional investment, they've shown up to a game night, and they lose on top of one because they don't understand how to not shoot their fucking pistol on their caster. Parker, why don't you describe what that feels like?
I was going to say, that is exactly,
That's exactly why I hate this game.
No, I was actually going to say that's why I actually like this game, and one of the reasons why I think it is.
We're not there yet. Talk about what I told you to talk about.
Well, I thought you were trying to answer the question that you initially put up, but okay.
No. I want you to talk about how it feels when you lose games.
It's absolutely
never a part of.
It's absolutely the worst, because even if you're somebody like me who bought all their models from Jeremy, even if you don't, even even if you just love the way that they look and you love the mythos, or you just really love pouring yourself into the game and you spend hours, making what you think of as going to be an exciting, fun list that, it shows some part of who you are, and you bring it to the game and you sit it down and that's your general. This general shoots her gun, and so she shoots her gun and then she dies instantly from your opponent's one-trick pony or just a random roll of a dice. You just spent minimally, you just lost like 2.5 hours of your life just into the wind. All that investment of that time is gone. Maximum, you had to create time in your life. You had to arrange for people to deal with your social responsibilities because you couldn't do that while you went and played games. You cashed in social credit in order to make it happen, and you maybe had to arrange it physically, either electronically because you're trying to make sure it works, or you had to arrange your person there, or you got to the actual game store and everybody's playing a game, and so you had to wait for half an hour before anything could start. Like, there are so many things that could completely deflate you as a person if the game is not rewarding. So many things. Take it from...
I almost cut you off way before you finished there, and I'm glad I didn't, because that's exactly where I was going next. And Jeremy and Parker, both of you guys have demon spawns, so you'll respect this more than anybody, that the amount of investment it takes just for you to show up to the building. Like you've scheduled this years in advance, really. Like, the amount of, investment you've made at a family level, at a social level, at a hobby level, and that's beyond even just what the average person does. Like, the amount of investment for hobby games, tabletop miniature specifically, is incredible. Like, it's an expensive hobby, it's a time-consuming hobby, it's an art, all of this stuff goes into it, and when you put basically months of your life, like, I just gave a demo to a couple people the other day, and for the fact that they're going to show up during a pandemic, they're going to take their models home, they're going to assemble them, a lot of times learning to do it for the first time, they're going to paint their models, and they're doing all this because they love the aesthetic, they love the character mythos of Marvel and all of the things around it. They show up to the game, and what happens? And you're just like, Raffle Stomp lost in 5 minutes. And they're like, well, I'm glad I wasted hundreds of dollars and months of my life trying to get ready for this hobby, just so I could show up, have a terrible time, and never want to do this again. And that's where I'll say that Marvel does a really good job of ensuring that isn't going to be their response. Because it's almost impossible to just instantly eliminate anything in this game because of the dazed mechanic and the way wounding stops at some point. The recovery mechanic of taking a bunch of damage and getting power back for it allows you to respawn. It's like a comeback mechanic built into the game. Characters generally are pretty hard to kill regardless. Like, it's pretty uncommon to see someone just walk up and kill somebody. That's very uncommon in this game, where it is very common in other games, like War Machine. Like, commonly in War Machine, I'd say about 50% of the models that die never make attacks. Like, they don't even get to participate before they die because the game is so bloody, which is very unrewarding for casual players. So I'll say, where Jeremy came in originally and said that he thinks it's more of a tournament game, I do think the game is built to be deep enough that the competitive players will definitely enjoy it. I do think it could be a little bit deeper, mostly just because I'm not a huge fan of skirmish level games. I like war scale games, where you have about 100 models instead of 6. But, that being said, I think it's a really good job of splitting the difference, where pretty much anyone can show up. You can play all Avengers, you can Avengers Assemble, you can play all the cool, fun cards, and you'll be playing the game, and I don't think you'll have as many negative play experiences as you will in other games. Jeremy, what do you think?
I agree. I think the negative playing experience is the perfect way to put it. That is pretty much eliminated. The KO mechanic and on the way that whole thing is set up is really cool. It's a lot different than any other game because of that.
Parker, do you think it leans more towards one than the other?
I do not think this is a very casual game. And the main reason why I don't think it's a very casual game is there's just so much to it. One of the things that I know drives people away from games very quickly is the level of complication. How much do I have to learn in order to start playing? And at just the, I'm gonna I'm going to pick up the starter game and play. The starter box comes with how many freaking cards? Like, and a rule book.
Real quick. I understand where you're putting that down, but on the counterpoint, I think you've been a little bit spoiled recently. So how long would it take you if you sat down in a room by yourself to learn to play War Machine competitively?
Competitively?
10 years? 10 years? 5? 9?
How long would it take me to play War Machine competitively?
To learn to play War Machine at a competitive level, sitting alone in a room reading.
Oh, I did that. I learned to play
without any actual games happening.
I played games against myself. I learned to play War Machine because my community in Lawrence completely shut down for years. I played games of War Machine against myself on a game table in my basement for like a year and a half before I got to play any games against people when they kind of resurged again. So
yeah, but I played you back then. You were terrible.
No, I wasn't. I didn't. Well, the problem is whenever you play against yourself, what you don't see is the whole width of the game, right? I could definitely.
You don't see what people will exploit against you because you don't know that it exists, or else you would have defended against it, right?
So, but that being said, to go back to my. Actually, I'll let you finish your point because it sounded like you were going somewhere with it. What was the point of it?
So my point was, I think the basic concept of the rules in this is very similar, kind of like X-Wing is really simple. Simple. It's really simple, kind of like X-Wing is. Like the concept of maneuvering and measuring ranges is obviously dead simple. All the stats being simple, small numbers is very basic. Like it's not hard to understand how defense dice work. It doesn't get actually complicated until you get into timing, which is usually not necessary for your first 5 to 10 games. And it's usually not necessary when you're building lists for the first couple times. The only thing that's kind of confusing is the breadth of options available, which is if you're getting a starter box and just buying the models you like, I don't think really enters into it.
What I'm going to say is, because Jeremy and I were talking about that just today before we started casting,
okay.
When you pick up any character in this game, like any one character in this game, you actually have to learn so many other things in the game. And some characters right now are the only characters that have certain special rules, right? So when you pick up, for example, Ronan the Accuser, you're like, I want to play Ronan the Accuser. Well, not only do you have to learn what Ronan the Accuser does as a brand new player who hasn't played a lot of games, but you're also going to have to learn what Judgment does. And that's a new entry in the rule book now only found online. And I'm not saying that any of those things are unreasonable from us, people who play a lot of games and we're used to going trekking and finding this stuff. But if you were if this was a beer and pretzels game, this would all seem like way too much energy of activation. The energy of activation for all these activities is just way too high. So that's why I believe this game is a competitive one. I think this game was designed for people who have played games, who want to win games, who are well versed at navigating the forest for the trees when it comes to tabletop gaming. I do not think if anyone who loves the Marvel Universe wants to play this game, I think you will have to learn how to play board games. You will have to learn how to do tabletop gaming in order to participate in this also. You will not be able to just pick this up in the way you might be able to pick up a trading card game based on Marvel, for example. Because everybody's played Uno, that those skills translate. But I do not know how, being able to play something like even as complex as Monopoly is going to translate to a game with this many moving parts. And that is not a detractor. I don't think they had any illusions when they designed this game about what they were making. It's very clear that they wanted to make a game where each character felt like the real Marvel heroes. And if you love Marvel, you will know that every hero is very intricate. So if you pile, 50, you said 54 is how many characters we got right now?
51.
So if you did just the characters and just the basic rules, saying nothing about the conditions or the timing chart or all the cards to the crisis missions and all that stuff, that all those degrees of complication just increase the energy of activation so much that I think at some point it goes over the level of a casual game and it moves into a competitive game. Now, and you guys have defined competitive and casual your own way. I look at competitive versus casual as a energy of activation for a person who wants to engage in a pastime right? So at a certain point, this is no longer a pastime. Now it's an intricate intellectual enterprise, and that is what I think MCP is, and that's what I want to spend my time in my life doing. I don't like passive experiences. That's why I love MCP, but I don't think this is nearly as casual a game that the average person who wants that low energy of activation is going to be able to jump in and be able to feel like they're exploring all the places. Now, you guys are right. This game has great comeback mechanics. No one's going to feel like their time is wasted playing this game. Even if all you get to do is play a demo game and you have somebody really hold your hand, Hansel and Gretel breadcrumb through the forest style, like they're really showing you everything to do, you're going to feel great when you get done. You're not going to feel like you wasted your time. This game has a lot of great things, but one of those great things is intricacy, and that's going to stop it from being a casual game, and by my definition.
What's interesting, I watched one of the local guys with his sons, and I think they were, I don't know, I think his sons were like 12 and 10 or something like that, and he was kind of helping them through the game, but they were playing, with the basic rule set, and they weren't going in that deep, but man, they were having a hell of a time, and it seemed like a lot of fun, but it was not the same game.
Sure, but I mean, anytime you're playing a game casually, obviously you're not, that kind of, I think, implies you're not exploring the final conclusion of efficiency, I guess would be the term. Like, you're not trying to make it, like two people can play chess casually, right? But one of them might be a grandmaster playing casually, and that's going to result in very different effects. But the reason I say it's very close to being a casual game, at least a lot more so than most tabletop games, is all of the resources you need to play are free. I mean, the rule book, including everything, even all the online updates, is 29 pages. Yeah, 29 pages. Currently the GW rulebook is like 380, and I know that's a lot of pictures and a lot of background information, but like even just the rules is far more than that. It's not overly complicated. There is a lot of information though. I will say that. And if you're buying, even if you're just buying one faction, like for example Guardians of the Galaxy, you do have to worry about powers like Judgment and looking up what they do in the rulebook. And the rulebook is online. You don't have a physical copy unless you print it out. I can understand how you would view that as a more of a competitive game, and honestly, I think that's good. I think every game should be designed from a competitive standpoint first, and then focused on casually second, because it can go one way, it can't necessarily go the opposite way. It's a lot harder to go the reverse and take a casual game into the competitive spectrum. But that being said, I think the game is very easy to pick up at its base levels. The core rules are very simple, they're very intuitive, which is even more important. Like if you sit down and you go, hey, these are your stats, you're this fast, you're this big, you are this many points, and these are your defensive abilities. You get 2 actions, go. You get to activate one guy at a time. Like, I think most people with just that information could perform a turn without too much to do about it. And then, like, obviously, like, knowing what all the different terms mean, like bleed and root and slow and all that, obviously that's a lot more information, but still it's pretty low on the list of things you need to know. Like, in War Machine, like, knowing how to do a throw power attack. Like, what happens when I throw this heavy war beast into your unit of infantry? You're like, well, that's like 6 paragraphs. Like, that's almost as many as the core rules of this game. Like, I think it's a lot closer to casual than you guys are inferring it is. But I will say, I do like how clean it is, which is clearly the game is written from a competitive standpoint. People wanted it to be able to use, like, there shouldn't be any way 2 intelligent people read this paragraph and disagree about what it means. Like, that's what it means to have a clear rule set, to have a precise rule set. Being able to measure ranges efficiently, like knowing the difference between measuring within and completely within a distance, like that stuff is important. But all in all, I think competitively, like, let's say if, like, in my opinion, War Machine was the best competitive rule set that had ever been printed for a war game. So let's say that was a 10 out of 10. I think this game is probably an 8 or a 9 because it's very clean, it's very precise. We haven't fully examined where it's going yet because it's still in its very early stages, I would say, because the game is barely more than the game is like not even a year old yet. It's like 3 weeks from a year old, and it's very easy to pick up. It's very easy to teach people. I think it's probably like a 4 in difficulty to learn out of 10, but it's like 8 or 9 competitive level, which I think is really important. The barrier to entry is very low. You don't have to play that many games before people really start getting it. As where like War Machine, which I know we keep going back to, but we played thousands of games of War Machines between us, and you would start playing War Machine in Mark II, and it'd be like 6 months before you expected to win a game against a good player, and that's like best case scenario. And this game, like clearly, you could start winning after like a couple weeks probably of actually trying.
And
I'm pretty happy with the state of this game so far, and I think they do a really good job of splitting the casual and competitive concepts.
I actually was about to say that despite what's kind of sounded like critique when I was giving it, I think this game has incredible depth, which I have to have in a game, or I don't even start. I don't even bite on a game if it doesn't have depth.
Yeah.
So this game has great depth, but if someone was going to come off the street and say, you've been playing tabletop games for 15 years, what game that's out right now would be a great game for me to start with? I would point at this game first. And even though it does have a lot of intricacy, I would tell them, like, hey, yes, just so you know, you're going to see mountains of text really fast on your very first, box you open. There's going to be a lot to read and a lot to learn, but you're going to really appreciate this game for all the things it does once you get started. A lot of the things that make this game great require you to know a little bit about tabletop gaming, but once you get that underneath you, you are really going to like what this game does because of all the things we've just talked about. The comeback mechanics, the low chance for negative play experiences, the devotion to the source material, all those things make for a very rewarding experience that you may not get in a quote-unquote competitive tabletop game that might turn a player off who wanted to do something like tabletop gaming. It would be a great place to start.
Did my argument sway you a little bit? Because I know you came in pretty
I'm
heavy on the competitive side. Did my argument sway you a little bit?
No, I mean, legitimately. Well, because initially I was like, you know what? It's super competitive, but after 4 beers, it's awesome. But no, I really land in that, like, I'm thinking, well, I actually played both, and I played both very seriously. Like, I will sit there and watch Age of Ultron, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm using Ultron, he's such a badass. And that's the only reason. It has nothing to do with being competitive. It's nothing to do with, anything other than he's just a badass, and I want to play him today. And there's also days where I'm like, me and you'll line it up and be like, this is our best choices, and this is what we're going to do. So it lands in both fronts. It's just the wall of text, and it's so much. It really is. And there's a lot of gotcha moments if you don't know it all. That makes some unfun experiences.
I know we're not really on the topic of like game designers right now, but generally speaking, and this is why I take offense to what Parker just says, he doesn't play a game unless there's depth. He plays X-Wing. I know that for a fact, and that game has 0 depth. But moving on past that.
Bullshit.
Fuck you, Parker. That game sucks.
Yeah. You keep telling yourself that.
A lot of people tend to avoid Fantasy Flight games specifically because they say they don't know how to write like a competitive rule set. And as an example, I'll just throw it out there real quick, and this is my personal opinion. You don't have to necessarily agree with it. X-Wing, Armada, Legion, Star Wars Destiny, a lot of stuff like that tends to come out, and it's gangbusters initially, and then they'll run into creative design ceiling, basically, where it's like, well, we've kind of written ourselves into a corner because we made X, and then we made Y to counter X, and now nothing counters Y. So now we're making W, which is really just better than everything, and oh shit, we're in tighter of a corner now, so now we're going to make Y super broken, and so they just tend to escalate really quickly into like a power creep counter scenario. And usually they come out on the better side of it in the long run. I'll give them that. but clearly they don't plan super far ahead on initial design, and that being part of like a larger game organization in general, that can kind of happen when you're not specialists in a particular field. Like, clearly Fantasy Flight Games makes a huge array of games, and they have a huge amount of employees, and there's a lot of bureaucracy involved. Asmodee owns Fantasy Flight Games, and Asmodee is the company that is partnered with Atomic Mass Games. They are not technically part of FFG, but they do have a very similar release cycle. They do have a really similar distribution cycle. They have a really similar, basically, product layout, because they're very similar, because most of them are involved with Asmodee, which is a very large game organization on the whole. But clearly, the people that designed this game put a lot of thought into stuff going forward. Like, they left a lot of room for expansion. They had the foresight to make the online rule books, that way they could add in these new effects that come in as soon as they drop. They could, instead of having a printed rule book, like, you get the learn to play guide in the core book, but that's not technically the rule book. And so that way they can go in and change anything they have an issue with or it's causing problems. And so this is well thought out. It's got a lot of infrastructure behind it. It's got a lot of experience behind it. I like the way that they're able to adapt things. Like, when the rulebook first dropped, we didn't have rules for Infinity Stones. We didn't have rules for Judgment. We didn't have rules for Poison. Like, we didn't have any of this stuff. And it's just seamlessly getting integrated into the rulebook as everything comes out. And at any time, if they run into a competitive or a balance issue, they can update those things on the fly, and everyone will have immediate access to it. And so I have a lot of faith in the people behind this product. So I like that for this game as well, which is obviously really important for both competitive and casual play.
So how does it land?
Well,
a 4,
on a 1 to 10 scale, I would say. So, like, overall grade? No, so on the competitive scale, like I already said, I think it's an 8 or a 9. And 10, I think, is literally the pinnacle. I almost don't even want to put War Machine at a 10. But because I devoted almost 10 years of my life to that game and traveled to Europe to play it, I think it deserves a 10, just from the sole purpose of I was putting 40 hours a week into that game, and I felt like all 40 hours were rewarded for the investment I had. And that was at one point. I don't feel that way anymore, obviously. I'm not very happy with where the game is currently, but I think at one point, like, let's say midway through 2nd edition War Machine through midway through 3rd edition War Machine, was the most fun I've ever had tabletop gaming, hands down. Part of that might be the people I met playing it, like you guys and a few other people, but I had a blast learning and playing that game, and it was very rewarding to me. I think this game has a lot of potential, and right now I'd put it at about an 8. I think it could go higher easily. On the competitive spectrum, I think the lower the number, probably the better, because I think the barrier to entry for this game is very low. It has, I think, hands down the best entry starter box in the game. Like, there's no question 2 people can play a tournament-sized game for $100 total. Explain how that's possible for any other game.
It's awesome.
Even X-Wing, it's impossible.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it's not even close. Like, if you bought 3 starter sets, 2 people can't play competitive. Like, it's not even close. Mm-hmm. It's insane they were able to release the core set. It comes with terrain. It comes with tokens. It comes with rulebook. It comes with fucking models. It comes with cards. Like, it's stupid. What all comes in that box? I can't believe it was released.
Trash cans. It has trash cans in it.
Yeah, it's trash cans. But yeah, it's incredible. They're releasing their own terrain. Like, how many game systems release their own affordable terrain that's in boxes that's properly scaled and properly aesthetic? Like come on. Like, they're doing almost everything at the proper level. The only critique I have right now is the release cycle is a little aggressive, but I feel like that is like giddiness from the company of wanting to get all the cool stuff out there. It's like a kid at Christmas. He's like, look all the cool stuff we can make, because the Marvel license allows them to make literally everything ever cool. So,
on that note, I wonder, I'm always thinking this when it comes to games, and you already mentioned it with X-Wing and, the releases, and it's like one breaks the other. And, it's with this game, I keep waiting for the model
the busted
to be
model.
released. The one. Yep, the one that's going to fuck all this up. And, it's a bunch of smart guys.
Yeah.
We've met all of the guys. Like, we know who's making this game. personally, most of us, and god damn, they've done a hell of a job, and hopefully they keep it up.
I have yet to see a model that's out. I mean, Doctor Strange, I think, is the closest thing to broken we've seen, but I haven't gotten to play against him yet. So I withhold my judgment until I've actually seen it on the table. But, like, where's the broken thing? Like, we're almost a year into the game, nothing's broken yet. Like, Sorsha 1 was, like, the most egregious thing ever printed. And she was in the starter! Like, come on. But I'm just trying to think, like 40K, for example, in 8th edition, their 8th attempt at making a rule set, they had to eradicate it within 2 months because there were so many broken things. Like, they had to stop people from deep striking turn 1. They had to stop people from taking more than 3 copies of a unit. Well, I guess ITC did that, but still. Like, the people were like, hey, look, you can take an Eldar heavy weapons platform for 15 points. I guess I've broken the game because here's 800 of them. And you're like, okay.
And I mean,
like, it was...
and look at it.
Their 8th attempt at a game, at the same game, and they couldn't even get it that close. And it's like, this game's been out for a year, basically. We've had 0 erratas that were balancing. Like, the only erratas we've changed are like, oops, they typoed.
Models.
Like,
each one is very, very different, but none of them are a blowout. It's crazy.
Yeah, and 80% of the lifespan of this game has existed during a pandemic. Like, I think they deserve a lot of credit in this example.
Sponsors,
like, and so sponsor. Yeah, from a casual perspective, I know we were doing the rating scale, so I would say it's probably a 6 out of 10 on quality of a casual game. It's not as good as a casual game because of the depth we've talked about. If you're just going to go to a tournament, which is kind of counterintuitive, looking for casual pickup games, I think you'll have fun as long as you're there for the right reasons. If you're there to win as a casual player, obviously you're not going to have fun probably because you're not putting in the full effort. But I think you're going to have meaningful games. I think you're going to have fun interactions. I don't think you're getting overly frustrated with the game. Those are all really important things. I put it on the top half of the scale. I'd say probably 6 out of 10 because generally I would expect someone who considers themselves a casual player will either have a limited collection, have a limited experience with the game, or have a limited experience in attempting to win the game versus people of their skill level. Now, obviously, the more you play the game, the more experience you're going to get, so that will obviously change. If you play the game 40 times a week, you know, I would say you're not a casual player anymore, but you will start winning a lot more games. I think because of the lack of negative play experiences, like, I think the biggest negative play experience is, like, my opponent got to play Age of Ultron. Like, okay, whatever. Like, that kind of happens sometimes. But
you forgot about Venom. You forgot about Venom.
No, I mean, there are going to be bad things that happen to you that you have a hard time controlling, but that's literally every game. Like, oh no, apples to apples, my opponent got the golden apple. Oh, fuck this game. Like that's not fair. Like, I think it's at least a 6 out of 10, and if not higher on the cat.
I would go a little higher. I mean, shit, they actually have created these models that look exactly like they do in the movies. I mean, on purpose. Mm-hmm. They've used quotes and put them on the cards that are just funny, you know? Like, it's so clever and cute that it almost...
I guess like, I should bring up the fact that I'm very, like, ruthless when I rate things. Like, if I was rating 40K on the same spectrums, right? Competitive play, I'd put it at a 3 out of 10. Casual, I'd put it at a 4 out of 10. So, like, I think this game is way better than 40K on both spectrums. I guess I should clarify.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
As we're War Machine, currently, on a casual spectrum, I'd put it at a 2. And on a competitive spectrum, I'd probably put it at a 5. So...
And also, like, prostitutes stomping your nuts is like a 2 or a 1.
I'd probably put that at a 3.
I'm trying to
mm-hmm.
I'm trying to look at your scale.
I can keep rating. X-Wing casual scale 2. X-Wing competitive scale 1. Continuing on to Star Wars Legion. Competitive scale 2. Casual scale 3.
I just hope they keep on the top of the competitive scale, really. Again, I worry about the one model cracking the system. It hasn't happened yet, but as long as they...
The most important the biggest worry for me specifically is just what you said. The one over the top thing that got through playtesting that we missed or is just overtuned. We haven't seen it yet, so we don't know how they'll respond to it.
Because truly,
that's the only thing that vaguely concerns me about this game right now. And it's only because of the lack of experience of having it, which is a good thing.
Well, also, there is something to be said about game design. Like the Jedi curve exists, right? This is not a Star Wars pun. It's actually something that exists outside of it. It's just a reference to the concept that in a game system, you do want to have some things that are obviously slightly above average, because that encourages a loop, right? So instead of having rock paper scissors, you just have rock rock rock, unless you introduce a Jedi, and now you go, okay, well this one character is really strong. If everybody's playing rocks, well, this one character is paper, but then that allows players to go find scissors, right? They go into the game and they discover how it is that they can create advantageous situations against that one obvious foil, right? The Jedi. So I'm actually not scared of a single Jedi in this game. What I'm nervous about the most is like a faction ability that's a Jedi curve. That's what I don't like. Because then it feels like everybody in the list is automatically really strong. I don't mind if, for example, Doctor Strange, we bring him often as he seems to be a little bit higher than the curve. If you just like one model for 5 points, he seems to be. But I think that's fine if there's one Jedi in the game, and he happens to be a wizard. So it doesn't bother me in the game that exists, because he's one model that doesn't break a faction or automatically win by himself. He's just clearly strong, and it behooves you as a player of the game to consider how you can deal with that model. And that's one of the reasons why I actually rank this game competitively pretty high. I would rank it up there like around the 8s, maybe 9s, because of that. They've done a really good job monitoring the Jedi curve, and that's clearly something.
The only thing that comes close in my mind is the random objective, the thing disappearing. Like that's the closest thing. Like that's the most unlucky thing.
Are you talking about the Meteors mission?
Yes. It's the most unlucky shit that can happen that you just can't come back from if it happens at the wrong time. I consider it like that's the closest
the name of the
thing.
mission is Alien Ship Crashes in Downtown. The 20-point mission, I think. Yes, it's a 20-point mission. Yeah, I can understand that, but I think that's part of it. Like so as competitive wargamers, we all know introducing chaos into a game is always bad, correct? Unless you have a way to manipulate the chaos. So I think that is what that mission is. If you have a way to affect it, then it's smart to take. Or, if you're just taking it to play a 20-point game, I think you're making a huge mistake, because that mission will tend to decide the game more often than you do, because whoever picks it up first has a huge advantage. And if someone manages to pick it up with an unkillable character like Thanos, it's like game over, man. Like Captain America picks it up first activation, you're like, well, GG. Immediately plays like Avengers Assemble and backs away, and you're like, well, this game's over. That's incredibly like negative play experience. But I think you're not going to see people take that mission at competitive levels unless they have a way to manipulate it, which means it's no longer chaos. It's now just a smart play.
Yeah, and again, it's just a small thing. Like, that's the most I can critique it. And that's pretty small compared to, I mean, again, 40K. We could probably say a few things about that are fucked up. But, no, I mean, it's a small thing, and it's just the chaos. I think you nailed it on the head. The chaos in a competitive game is a bitch. Whether it be a toughness roll or that, or, I mean, yeah, it's hard. Chaos is tough.
And it's one thing to do, which is basically just like learn a script.
You're like, well, go play chess.
Like
then.
You're playing chess, just spend 10 years learning scripts. All right, well, we've gone overtime now because Jeremy wanted to do 2 topics, I guess. This is 100% Jeremy's fault. Oh, yeah, sorry, Parker's fault because he squeezed in that comic corner. It took 30
I thought it was Cyclops' fault.
It is Cyclops' fault because he made you want to do a comic
I thought it
book.
was Parker's fault.
he made me. I mentioned the
you.
title of a single. Never mind. I'm gonna shut up.
Yeah, stop. See, now we're more over. We're now 3 hours over.
Because I won't stop
because of
talking about
Cyclops.
Comic Corner. I understand.
It's
Thank
also
you.
Cyclops' fault.
I'm glad we can all agree. Parker, I'm cutting your pay by 1/3.
Oh no, that's 1/3 times 1/3.
Yeah, so now you're making 2/9 of your normal pay.
How shall I deal?
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. This has been Brandon.
And Parker.
And Jeremy.
And thank you for listening to Threat Level Midnight.
Bye.
We did it, guys. We did a whole
We did.
podcast by ourselves.
We're big boys.
Hurrah! All right, do we need to turn it off? What are we doing?
No, don't do anything yet.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, don't do anything. Don't touch.
You're going to fuck her.
I'm not touching it.
All right.
Touch
now
it.
for the moment of
Touch
truth.
it.
Jeremy, is your Audacity recording?
Yeah.
Parker, is your Audacity recording?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. I was so worried. I was so worried that one of you fucked up and turned off your recording. So I forgot to start the backup recording that records all of us at the same time.
You jackass!
Until, like, let's see, it's at 1:20, we're at 2:37. So, yeah, we missed the first hour and a half if you guys weren't recording. Oh, that would have sucked. Thank God.
Yeah, mine is at 2.
What?
2 hours.
Should be at 2:38.
Mine's at 2 hours. Mine was at 2 hours and
Mine-
38 minutes.
Nope. I don't know. Mine says 20019. 20023.
I'm assuming Jeremy's just fucking with
I
us.
don't know. Doing what it says.
Hmm.
I swear to God, I'm not.
Murder, death, kill. I'm gonna 187 the shit out of you.
I don't know why.
I'll just edit in Jeremy talking. This is my
I don't
Jeremy.
know.
I'm Jeremy. My name is Jeremy. That's gonna be you
What
for
it
the
is.
first 30 minutes. I'll just do the waka waka noise the whole time Jeremy's
Yeah.
be talking.
Wow.
Wappa
Wah.
wah,
Oh,
waka
God.
waka waka.
Great. I'm so glad that Jeremy can't press the red button.
No, I did. I haven't touched it since, so I don't know what the
Can you
difference is.
explain the time disparity to me then?
Well,
Well.
I can use Bill and Ted as an analogy.
If you, like, were fucking around in settings and changed the playback speed, I'm gonna fucking kill you.
I didn't change anything.
I bet that's what he did.
I didn't change anything. Oh my God. I don't
Okay.
know.
Still gonna kill you. though. Alright.
All right, what are we doing here?
Hold on, I'm deleting things on our page. What do you guys think? Did we do well? Was it good?
That was a really good. Yeah, I think that was a really good podcast. We had.
Listen, Singapore will tell us.
I was going to say only Singapore will tell us over the international date line. So whatever day we post it the next day. But I was going to say the
I'm pretty sure according to the international dateline, they've already heard it, right? That's how that works?
they've already listened to it.
Ah.
They're
Okay.
they're time
So,
travelers.
I'll just check our listens then, and we'll know if it was good or not.
They're time travelers.
Oh, guys, we're still at the same listens. That's not good.
Oh,
They didn't like it.
What a horrible interpretation of that thing. just like they live in the future and they know we sucked.
Oh God.
I kind of wish we had named the podcast Threat Level Midnight.
Threat level Proxima Midnight. God
really love that
damn
name.
it. How did we... You sons of bitches.
How did we miss that?
Jeremy knows
Absolutely,
Threat
yeah.
Level Midnight, right?
Michael
Yeah.
Michael
Can you explain
Scarn
Parker real quick? Michael
Yep.
Scarn, Secret Spy.
and Goldface and what were the other ones? They're
I
all
can't remember the other
fucking
characters' names.
stupid. Yeah, it was like they were like James Bond.
Yeah, it was Michael Scott
fucking-
from The Office
It
wrote
was his
wrote a
stupid-
screenplay for
his
a movie.
screenplay.
So anyway, I can't remember you didn't remember that, but also I
Threat
suggest
Level
as the name of the
Midnight.
podcast because threat levels, and Parker's like, but that doesn't have anything to do with Marvel. It's like it's threat level, like threat of models, and he like didn't get it.
Yeah, that
Yes.
for some reason,
Yeah.
like directly over my head.
Right over, yeah, just like fucking cleared him by a mile. Needs to get better reflexes.
I'm wondering why this is only says 2 hours and yours says 2 hours and 38 minutes.
I'm willing to bet that you actually changed the playback speed.
Okay. I I mean, I don't know. Can you adjust?
What does that mean?
Can you adjust that? I mean, is it lost?
I don't know. I've never had to do it before. But if you move any of the little dials on the screen, you can dramatically change what happens when you press
No, I
buttons.
didn't touch anything. Like, nothing's been touched. So it was like that from Go, whatever that is.
I'm gonna fucking be so mad. Be so mad. All right. Well, I guess we're done for today. We should have a good enough pre-ramble from the beginning. But thanks for joining, guys. Jeremy, do you have to get up at 4 a.m. again?
You know I do. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll see you tomorrow for games then.
Yeah. So do we need to save this and give it to you? What are we doing?
Yes. So I'm going to stop recording now.
Okay. Hit stop now.
All right.
Nailed it.
Between those two, I'll get it synced up.
Nailed it.
Okay.
God, I'm good at clapping.
Wow. Between the 2 weeks, I think we've had just about as many audio complications as we'll have for the rest of the podcast. So, holy shit.
Let's all speak for ourselves for a moment here. I just sat here.
That's true. Parker's had very few audio problems other than sounding like a twat.
Yeah.
That's a twat issue.
But that's more of a vocal cord issue.
Yeah, it's definitely a twat issue.
I don't understand it, but I know it's out there. It's math. Science.
It's science.
It's science. It's wizards. I don't know.
I don't know what they call it. I just know what it sounds like when it lies.
Oh, God.
I know that. What is that from?
Tropic Thunder.
The sound it makes when it takes a man's
Tropic.
life.
That's right.
It's Tropic Thunder. And then later in the film, he says, I don't know what they call it. I just know what sound it makes when it lies.
Oh, God.
I'm just a white dude playing a black dude playing another black dude.
In his head movies. Yeah, I'm confused. I am confused.
All right, so Jeremy wasn't here last week, so just a quick refresher.
I did give him an update what we did last week, FYI.
Yeah, well, I just meant mainly if it's not established in the commentary, Jeremy goes third when we go in order. I go first, Parker goes second, just so we don't step on each other. I'll try and mix it up, though.
Fine.
Just so you guys know, we're going to actually do the full intro this time. And so we're going to go through announcements, news, and I actually have a lot of announcements today. Then we're going to talk about what we're currently playing and what we're currently modeling. So, Parker, do we have a comic corner today?
If you want one, I
just need to know yes or no.
No, I don't have one prepared. So
okay, that's fine.
That's fine. We had one last time.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We're good. Just like fighting my fridge full of beer and liquor. Got to top off my Yahtzee shaker.
No.
You guys know that reference?
Mm-mm.
Jim Gaffigan. It's like, it's not as dignified to drink wine out of anything but a wine glass, because you always feel like the biggest piece of white trash. You're like, go into the kitchen and they're pouring more low for everybody, and you're like, hey, can you refill my Yahtzee shaker? And they're like, you're not supposed to drink wine out of that. Okay. He's a stand-up comedian. He's the really, really white dude.
Oh, I know. He always makes. Yeah. He talks about food and never cusses. Yes, I know who he is.
Yeah, that guy. Let's see. I was writing all the announcements we had. Now I skipped one, and it's like halfway written. It just says "how to," and then stopped. I can't remember what I was writing. Oh, that's what. Hey Parker, what's your phone number?
And your social security number is again?
It's like 913 something, right?
I feel like I'm being baited into a trap.
The back.
No, I mean, I have it in my
card.
phone. I just don't want to bother
picture.
looking it up. I'm just saving some information.
Real quick.
And then the front. Perfect. Thanks. All right. Well, do we have anything for news this week? Any news?
News for the game? Yeah, we got news.
Oh, X-Men release.
Yeah, we know the X-Men release date.
11/13.
We know the X-Men leadership abilities are going to be kind of interesting. That's what spoiled on Storm.
Yeah, I guess Richard was correct. He said they originally announced that there was going to be two leaders for each of the mutant factions.
Yeah,
and so it sounds like there's going to be X-Men, and then X-Men Gold is Storm. Storm is leader of the X-Men Gold team.
My guess it'll be X-Men Blue team is the other one, based upon the.
Really, you don't think it'll be like X-Men Silver? I thought they'd do like Silver and Gold Age.
No.
Is there actually a silver? There's a blue team of X-Men.
Yes, judging from the costumes they chose for the X-Men, they're using one of the updates they did back. I think it was the '90s, and at that time it was Gold and Blue were the two teams, and Gold team was led by Storm.
Good to know. Oh, Parker, we got a compliment. Can you guys still hear me? Okay, I'm a little bit away from my mic.
Mm-hmm.
Parker, we got a compliment.
Hey, yeah.
Our listener said, quote, "Are you sure you meant to leave all that stuff in at the end?" And then I said, "Yes, I call it the pre-ramble." And he goes, "Oh, okay, cool. It was really funny to hear you tell Parker he sucks at naming podcasts." Jeremy, you listened to that section, didn't you?
Me painful.
That's my single favorite 5 minutes we put on tape.
It's me trying desperately to make it, and you just shooting them down constantly because they're all really bad.
That was the one time I was really glad I had a mechanical keyboard, because I'm like, all right, go ahead with your idea, and he's like, all right, and he starts talking, I start typing, and then I just immediately stop typing. It's like he's like, what if we were called the Silver Age Podcast? I have to SIL delete. He's like, all right, we're gonna start over, and you're not gonna be so fucking dumb anymore. We're gonna do that. And so that was basically what we did for 10 minutes.
Yeah. The best part is whenever you took a break, like you needed to go to the bathroom or something, and you came back 5 minutes later, and I was like, all right, I got them all. Here we go. And I rapid fired 4 horrible
so
ideas.
They're so bad.
You spent all that time, and that's the best you got. But yeah, we've got the Shadow Organization, spoilers. We got the secure threat, the secure crisis in Fisk's box. We know them. And we know a little bit more about the X-Men thing. And if Storm's team ability is actually what they put on this panel,
Your
it's
typing
really good.
reminds me of trying to call Comcast, and you're like, hey, what would you like? To speak with someone, to talk to someone you hate, or to complain more? Complain more.
Something real quick.
You're fucking so angry.
I like that. I'll recognize that.
Okay. Oh, I guess I've been so distracted I didn't think about it. Our topic today, we're going to talk briefly about selecting, or I guess the main topic is we're going to talk about how to select things in game. You've gotten to the table, if you have priority, if you don't have priority. We're going to use our list as an example. So if you guys want to pull up the list we built, that might be helpful at somebody. I'm going to pull it up. Jeremy's like, I don't give a fuck.
Listen, I've been up since 4 a.m. Y'all are getting what you get. I had a shitload of onion rings, and that's it. Fuck.
Oddly specific.
Hey, yeah, I got done playing golf, and I was hungry, so I got a large onion ring at Sonic, and now I'm ill.
I usually when I just want sides, I go to Culver's. Because they have family-size sides, and you actually get whole foam container of cheese curds for $8. Oh man,
yeah,
that's a mistake.
Sonic was on the way home, and yeah.
Is there any other news, Parker?
No, I think that's the main one. I think that's the main stuff. Oh, did you want to? When are we going to slide in or mention our edit to our list, because we got to change it because we found out.
Oh, that's correct. We'll do that in the main topic early on. That'll be the first thing we talk about in main topic. That'll be the subtopic of the day. So Jeremy, we can't have both Black Widows in the roster due to a misreading of the rules by me. Although technically, the rules section I read was exactly correct as to what I said.
Brandon, where did you write down our list?
I have it in here. I'll dump it in the chat.
No, I'm looking at all the stuff you're looking at. I think, but where?
It's in the episode description.
Podcast
for
topics.
The podcast. No, I didn't put it in podcast topics. It's not there. I can dump it here if you prefer.
That's okay.
Here, I'll put it.
I'll
put it at the end.
Where you put it is fine.
I put it at the end. It's at the end in the topics.
Okay.
And it's also in Discord if you prefer. But it's in the episode description on our podcast. So anytime someone downloads or accesses the podcast, the list will be right there.
Flippin' sweet.
Okay. Oh, look at that.
What?
Just what you put
this
up.
Is an audio medium park.
I'm looking at what you just posted up here with the list.
Oh, okay. I'm pretty excited. I've gotten 2 games in this week.
Jesus!
I don't mean to brag, but
God
it's only
among
Wednesday.
men! Jesus
I know,
Christ!
Right? And they weren't even no fake-ass TTS games. Like, real games in person.
Like, legit? Like, you, wore a mask and rolled dice and all that?
Well, I wore a mask for a decent amount of time.
You're kind of cutting out, in and out.
I played Jason, and I played my roommate, Brian.
Yeah, I'm cut.
Okay.
I'm hearing half the things you say, Brandon.
Good. All right.
Okay, well, that's fine, as long as you don't, get discombobulated by that, because I'm recording my own audio, so the internet won't affect my audio, which is why we're doing what we're doing. So it's only if you completely lose me and don't know what we're doing, and then I'll cut that out later. But yeah, our internet, I don't know what Discord is doing, but apparently it's called Suicide by Skynet.
So, Brandon, did you get to play these lists?
I did not. I could have, but my opponent was playing
any fucking game.
basically
So
the
stupid.
Asgardians. And so I was like, well, I don't want to play Asgardians and Asgardians. That's lame. I don't know what it is. I hate mirror matches in this game, so I attempt to avoid them when all possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love
It's especially
mirror matches.
bad when it's a character-based game, though, because, I don't know, Thor's charging Thor. What's going to happen in
here
the
he
Thor
comes.
v
He's
Thor
throwing
off?
Loki at me.
Oh, God.
If you throw Loki
How
at
Thor
me,
is
I
your
swear
Thor,
to God,
'cause my
I'll throw
Thor is the
Loki at
most Thor.
you. I swear to God.
Yeah. Although I got drop-off Thor for the first time it's happened to me, and I was like, this is so not okay. It wasn't even, he didn't even play Get Help. He just played drop-off with, Miles Morales, and I was like, wow, this is still fucking annoying. He doesn't even hit hard. So I definitely know what people feel like. Although I'm going to do a brief battle report because a lot of cool things happened in my game against Brian. So let me put that under announcements. Or no, I'm going to do currently playing section. I'll do that rep with Brian. Okay. We did pretty good holding to our expected time frame last week, Parker, but we still ran a little long. But we were having a lot of fun, so it's good.
Mm-hmm.
The only episode we're way over on is episode 1, which is, the Phantom Menace. So, that's got to be long. So many good things to squeeze in.
The Phantom
I'm going to adjust my
Menace.
mic. I'm just going to move it over a bit.
Oh my God. Finally.
I don't know what you expected me to say.
I just kind of put it all together. That was good.
I was so insulted that I didn't even process it for a while.
Yeah, I was like, that's funny. That movie sucked. And it was also the first. Oh my God! So I'm still a bunch of sleeves short. I didn't grab enough fucking sleeves the other night.
Don't worry, I just got all the new ones in, so we have 200 of each.
Nice. Perfect. I don't like those things touching air. I would hate that to happen.
Stale.
I like mine crisp.
Okay, I guess a couple things I'll cover with you guys for a second. This is fine to go in the pre-ramble, but I'm not going to put it in the main episode. Oh, yeah, I meant to say that, because I don't know if these people know how fucked up our podcast logic is, because we did War Machine podcast for so long. So let me just plug it in announcements.
What?
Oh, because like normal podcasts, I don't think do the pre-ramble thing where you put all the rambling before the episode starts at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if they're like actually listening after the end credits. So I'm gonna just.
Don't pull back the curtain.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Good lord!
Pay no attention to the podcaster behind the curtain.
All those, what is it? Singapore? All those Singapore people are like.
I'm not friends with
Singapore Easter egg.
I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. I'm telling you, we need Kazakhstan.
Well, this is actually what I wanted to talk to you guys about. So,
then we're in.
First off, we're clearly getting better because episode 0 has 16 plays, episode 1 has 17 plays, and episode 2 has 19 plays.
Boom!
Oh,
Boom
shit.
roasted, motherfuckers.
Did you check it 16 times?
Yes. Why? Is that relevant?
Just,
I definitely logged in from
I
another
was just
account
checking.
to check it, though. Is that important?
Every other day?
My catalog of
Well,
other
at
accounts.
least 3 times a day, at least.
Oh, okay.
So our geographic location database analysis says 80% of our podcast is listened to by America.
That's shocking.
I know, right? So we have 7%
China.
for the UK, 5% for Germany, and then Singapore, Australia, and Austria are all 1%.
Huh.
Finally.
Spotify is 34% of our downloads. I was very excited because we finally broke the 100% male demographic, but then I checked it and it just says 11% unspecified. I'm like, oh, I was excited.
We must have got one of those.
Oh, well, no.
We got a binary.
Or a symbiote.
It's cool.
Like,
It's cool to
one
get
of those
one
super
them.
privacy people. Oh, well.
I simply refuse.
Mm-hmm.
Don't assume my electronic gender.
Don't assume I care to input information online.
That's true.
All right. Are you guys ready to get cracking?
I suppose.
Let's do it.
Clickety clackety. Let's do a podcastity.
Oh no.
Chugga chugga choo choo.
God.
Oh, we do need to talk about this real quick, Jeremy. We have established that we're going to do 8 sub-rating categories for characters,
No.
and then 3 overall main rating categories. So we're going to do a 1 to 10 rating, a letter grade, and then an overall feels decision on it.
Cool.
We're also going to judge them based upon color and
Color on the cards, though. Like sometimes they have very vibrant blue.
Yes, we're using Roy G. Biv. We're using the
So-
electromagnetic spectrum.
So apparently my suggestion of rating them by height just got thrown
Yeah,
aside.
completely ignored.
Yeah.
You
Height
sons
is a
of
really
bitches.
weird category, I think. There are other categories.
But it is completely objective.
Yes.
Let's be fair about it.
But that's
Yeah,
why
no, it
that's
makes
why it's
perfect
so
sense.
weird though.
We'll do that.
I'm just scrolling through our possible podcast names that we were saving when we were making the podcast with me and Parker. And I just see here, Parker's best option was Leviathan Radio. So, what the fuck? I can't believe I wrote it down, but that was like the best thing from his entire list.
Oh no, one of them was really good.
Oh my god.
Yeah, sure it was.
I actually really
Bird
liked
with
what was the
teeth.
name of it? My favorite one I came up with was oh no! It was it. I got to go back and listen to it. It's something you called me while you were berating me for horrible names, and something you called me. I was like, that's a good name for a podcast.
Why do I imagine it exactly like the Charlie list that he has in his diary? Bird teeth.
Worm hat.
Bird with teeth.
No, his name is Charles Vermhat.
Yeah, bag of
He's
spaghetti.
a German guy that wears hats.
Or-
But he doesn't know how to spell, so he draws a picture of a worm in a hat. That's how he knows Charles Vermhat. Oh my god.
Yes!
I love that show so much.
Oh,
It's the best show ever made.
so good.
Okay, I think we're ready to start. You guys good?
Yes, do it. We vermed up.
I'm warmed
pretty
up.
loose.
Vermed
Pretty
up.
loose.
Pretty loose.